and I'm sure John's going to have to craft with the other admin how that looks procedural wise and how they check in and how you monitor. And so, but that's what we'll do tonight. So I just wanted to explain that. That just didn't come out of nowhere, and we crafted that. So that's coming up to the table.
Can I ask a question or make a comment?
Mm-hmm.
Would
Yes.
we want to be less restrictive instead of saying on-campus student support services? Just say any on-campus work, or I mean, do we want to limit it to support services?
So John?
Well, support services is still a very broad term, because when you look at support services, that's you can interpret that, I guess, many different ways. As long as it's supporting, and fundamentally, what this is for is to support students. You know, going to a meeting is a way of supporting students. You're supporting their emotional and social development. So, you know, I guess I don't want to get caught up in the semantics, but the interpretation of support would be anything that's supporting student development, and it doesn't have to be restricted to academics.
Well, and I think I had the same question, Jennifer, too. I'm like, but that's, John was saying that's kind of the lingo that MDE is using.
Okay.
And it is broad brush, you know, so, you know, that's why and I've had the same thing. So, well, other comments, what do y'all think?
I actually have two questions. Oh, first up, I was just going to say, Justin was saying that it was live again and we're good to go.
Right, I think I fixed it. I figured it out. English teacher, I did it.
Yeah, I know.
A rocket.
Good.
So I just had a couple of quick things. First up, yes, I think that this is excellent, especially as long as we are very clear that student support services does include both academic and non-academic support of student as a whole, like support the whole student. So then if I still want to have psych labs on the weekend, or if, you know, newspaper club wants to write their stuff on the grass and the, you know, behind building A, distance 6 feet apart, that they can still do those things. As long as that's the understanding of student support services, I think that that's definitely awesome. And then is there a way that we will have a sort of who is going to be sending out the guidelines we need to comply with, and when will those guidelines be set? Not to try to jump, you know, be overly anxious to jump things, but a couple of the labs that I want to do would be amazing to do outside, but I'm gonna want to do them in a couple weeks. So do we have like a time frame for when we'll know, and just so that we can start planning ahead to allow and make sure that we get our students on campus playing with each other, like in games and trying to do some things like that? That'll be really fun.
So John, it's the MSA director who will use his description. So is that something we'll get guidelines written up for?
Yeah, that would be something that we have. We'd definitely write up the guidelines for, and some of that is that a lot of that goes into the activities, because, you know, there will be a lot of, I'm assuming that there will be a lot of activities that will want to meet in person on campus when they're able to. I guess I would want to have that in place by the end of the month.
All right, so end of September?
Yeah.
All right, great. That would be lovely, because I've even talked about AP labs. I'd like to start getting kids in, and that would give me that option too. After, I think I'm going to wait till after MEA even to consider it. So great. That's great. And that the guidelines will be set. Will that be outdoor and indoor guidelines, John? Or so like?
Well, yeah, it would be mostly indoors. The outdoor guidelines is a lot less restrictive, but yeah, we would have to have an indoor and outdoor thing.
Okay. And
depending on what the scenario is.
Okay. And then like paperwork, if they have to check in for somewhere, you know, I'm just thinking ahead, just make sure we have that.
Yep.
All right.
I had a question. Is there any way it could be like maybe misinterpreted, where this is kind of a way to get into a hybrid learning model? Like, would parents read this and say, okay, great, I want to send my kid, and then come up with some reason why their student would need to come? Because I think the intention is it's not a class, right? We're not setting them into class, and we're not going to. So we have to be clear to the parents that this is like you said, support services is broad, but if we can't have it so broad that people start in their mind saying, okay, great, now I can send my kid to a supposedly hybrid scenario, right?
So how
Yeah,
would,
so
Right.
yeah.
so that's kind of like when I was saying psych labs, I mean just entirely voluntary, just for fun because we can't do what we would normally do, you know, so it's intended as enrichment, like just an enrichment activity. It's not something that I would require. So yes, but that is a very good clarifying point that when we're talking about some of those things, it's as enrichment and as social emotional development, and then as support services for 504 and IEP, that you know, that additional
Yeah.
support can be a specific success, you know, make a difference in specific success and things like that.
I'm 100% for that. I'm just saying I want to make sure that the people are clear what we're talking about here.
Yep.
Are there any, like, Dan, can you think of any other, like, making sure they're in the guidelines that we make that clear, or
Well, I think Michelle has said it quite clearly. I mean, maybe we just even say a statement that something to the effect of, this is not, you know, this is not a hybrid scenario. These are specific cases where we're trying to help with the children's, you know, emotional development, provide additional enrichment opportunities, which are voluntary, you know, so we list off a few things like that. Just say it explicitly so there's no confusion to folks, right?
Okay.
If I saw that, I would say, maybe I want to send my kid to school, and then I come up, because I mean, people are struggling, right? We're struggling emotionally. So someone would say, hey, my child is struggling emotionally. I need them to go to school, and then talk to you, John, and you're going to be getting a lot of requests for people with various reasons why they want to get back to school, and we all do. But I think if we lay out quite clearly, here's what we're trying to do, maybe that'll help people understand better.
Yeah, it is. This would be done out of school hours. It would not be done during school hours. So now, I guess that with the one caveat of that, it could be if it's a special ed student, I guess there could be the potential that it could be during school the hours, but that's something that the teacher and the student would have to work out.
And that's what I was kind of thinking when I saw that. I thought, great, somebody who needs the extra help can come in and get that extra help. But then where do we and how do we define that and whatnot? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, that'll be nice. All right. So we're gonna that amendment's on the at the back of the packet and on the actual I put it in your workshop too, but then parents could read it. So we'll do that. All right. So I think today we wanted to start talking about and this was John's thing too, the academics committee purpose statements, just kind of talking about them first, just during workshop for the remainder that we have here. And then
that wasn't brought up to the academics chair.
The academics, but that's been on part of our goals.
I know, but it was just as a generic thing. That's part of the academics committee, what we are going to do in our next meeting.
Right. No, I know, but just reading them and just talking about them. But again, you know, these are committees of the board. So we kind of see, that's the thing, Michelle, is you got to read these over and decide as a committee of the board that serves the board, what they say. And then I know you all are going to come up with some goals or whatever you're going to do, but I think we should go revisit what they are because they work for the board. And it's been my understanding that the board has always directed the committees of what they do. Is that correct?
Yeah, the whole purpose of a committee is to do something for the board in general. And if the board doesn't need that done, then there really is no purpose for that committee to meet.
Or some of us, like myself, are so far away from what they actually do that that's what's helpful to have people in here that, like for you, Michelle, when we read this, does that make sense? Is that what you do? Because there are like even some of the things down here, I don't even know because I'm out of the loop and doing other things. So just going through them and talking about them. All right. So does everyone have that in front of you that I sent the committee purpose statements? Do we have them or okay. So the first one committee purpose is for academics committee, individual teachers and departments create the curriculum taught at MSA. The committee approves any changes to the curriculum. Significant changes to the curriculum are approved by the board of director. The academics committee defines and redefines what academic excellence means for the school. The committee works with the director and department heads to set academic achievement goals, which are present and approved by the board. The committee also works with the director to devise clear and consistent ways to measure progress towards academic achievement goals. So that's my first one. Does that sound like that's for those of you on the academics committee? Is that accurate? Is that what that committee does?
Yeah, I think so. There's a couple of policies that we also work with, and I don't think we need to give the policy numbers in here just because I don't want to then have to redo a bunch of stuff if a policy number changes. But I think keeping it like this works. We have like some of the things that we look at to have to do with, this committee is referenced to in some of the world's best workforce materials and things like that. So we have regular updates for world's best workforce. And then we also were teaming up with the committee the personnel committee, when they were looking at inclusive hiring, under the idea that hiring and academics kind of work together. There's a lot of data to support that students are more comfortable and are more able to be academically successful if they have some access to teachers who are from similar ethnicities or similar backgrounds, and then also conversely that students encountering teachers of multiple different backgrounds, ethnicities, genders, sexualities, that these are things that help round them out as people and be able to interact with more people outside in the adult world. So that those two kind of also went together, not as like a decision-making team, but just as a supportive kind of update sort of thing. But I think that's all kind of lumped into the idea of academics and academic achievement.
Right, exactly. And then as far as I've pulled up the website, actually I have a really like a Smart Notes version that I sent all you. But so committee leadership, chairs or co-chairs with support of BOD members. And right now you have how many BOD? There's 4 of you, correct? On that committee? Yeah, okay. With the chair, co-chair, works within, gets information from BOD, director, guidance counselors, teachers, parents, and etc. And then committee members include director, all MSA department chairs, BOD member as chair, academic guidance counselor, and parents and or community members. So that sounds correct, right? All right. And then, I guess also I want to ask, and I need a discussion with all of you all as we go through this. After we go through these, should we ask the actual committee to come back with, is that accurate to them, or is that just a discussion? So John, this was kind of your baby. I should actually let you lead all this.
Well, I think, to me, this fundamentally goes back to the board, because the reason you have a committee is to fill a need that the board has. So if the board does not have a need, the committee should not be there, or its purpose should be defined. So the committee knows what this is our purpose, this is why we're meeting. So we stay focused within that committee on what is it that the board needs from us. Because too often there are a lot of different areas that can be construed as, well, it's kind of related, so we should be doing this, but another committee is working on that. And that's really not the purpose for the committee, because the board hasn't asked them to keep tabs on or investigate or look at this particular area. So I really think that as a board, you should be the one that's telling or directing the committee, this is what we need the committee to do. And then let the committee decide how they want to do it. But that is really what the board should be doing, is giving that committee the direction of, this is what we need from you to function as a board.
Which I think for me, the academics committee has that. So
right.
right? So that this is a definite need and fulfillment, especially as
Yeah.
they adhere to our mission and vision. How about
Yes.
the rest of you? And especially since 4 of you, have you also agree with that are on the board, that are on this committee?
Yep.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, great. All right. And then again, I'm on the website, so it's we take a look here at the annual fund committee. Dang it, I just lost it. Where are my committees? Annual fund. Oh, that's right. I have to go back. All right. So taking a look there, we have to develop and execute specific fundraising campaigns to support the goals of the MSA strategic plan, including Give to the Max. The annual fund committee assumes the responsibility of raising non-grant funds to support school operations. The committee is responsible for establishing annual fundraising goals and developing annual and multi-year fundraising plans for the school that'll generate non-grant and non-public funds for the school. So the committee leadership is a chair. There's a chair. Usually it's Tom, because that's part of his job description. Is that correct? Yeah. Should we put down, so, well, okay. So then support the BOD members on the committee. And then works with BOD, parent team, finance team, MSA director, assistant director, alumni, and student committee. And then you could see the rest. Now, I will say this one is really highly, well, actually, English teachers aren't going to like this. I shouldn't say that. It's very low attended. I was going to do a double like twist on that. It's really low attended. That's my sad part on this one. Like, not many people do this committee. So I've been on this committee before. So I don't know what to say about that. I don't know.
I do have one clerical thing works with. We need to eliminate the parent team. There is no parent team anymore. And if we want to add MSA PTO, we can do that, but just be aware that's an outside organization. It's not connected to the school, but they support the school.
Okay.
And when this was written, the parent team actually fell under the jurisdiction of the board, whereas the MSA PTO does not.
Right. I understand.
No, I really don't think the PTO helps raise money for the school.
Right.
They're raising money for themselves, to help the kids.
Right. Exactly.
So you might want to remove them altogether.
Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely remove parent team, the finance committees with that, activities director, assistant director, alumni committee, and student committee. So I have seen those. Okay. So parent team, PTO removed. And then usually the third Wednesday, but I think Tom might be shifting that. We just had a meeting that Adam will probably speak to. And then, all right. Well, so what else do we think? That's it, just to remove the PTO?
Yeah, and then probably update the titles. The MSA high school director, assistant director, and the middle school assistant director.
Instead of activities director?
Right.
It seems to me that this is an example of a committee that could be a game changer. And if we continue to talk about grow or die, and it seems to me that one other option is for this committee to really raise funds. And you could not have to grow and die if this committee could really raise funds. We've been around for how many years now?
21 now. We're going on 21. Maggie would know. She's been
21.
here.
Now, we're maybe still a little young, but let's think about the first graduates, right? The first graduates from here, I don't know, several hundred of them should be making six-figure salaries. It seems to me that this would be an opportunity to find, a professional fundraiser to come in and talk about how you do a real campaign once. And right, with the whole 9 yards of you build that teepee, and there's lots of us that give a small amount, and then there's a group of us that give a little bit more, but you look for the 5 or 6 people that really want to make a change in the school, and they're the top of the pyramid. And that's what a professional fundraiser does. And it seems to me that this would be the time to really make a change. But again, maybe the school is too young to really do that. But there's parents who are certainly in the retirement age of the graduates from those years.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, but I don't know why it's so low attended. Like, I wish we could get more people there. There's usually 3 or 4 of us, if that.
Well, and
I think, I
sorry,
think
go ahead.
people, I was just going to say, I think people don't want to join it because they're afraid they're going to have to do something big, like run a dinner. And I think that scares people. People are busy. But back to your thought about the kids and the parents of the kids. A couple years ago, I was on the Dragon Dinner Committee, and there was a push to find these alumni. I think that's the problem. We don't know where they are right now, what their addresses are. I think that would be, I think somebody would have to tackle that job. I don't think we've kept in touch with the graduates.
My graduating class has a Facebook group, and I've sent some things to them. And Adam, does your group, your grade have a?
Yeah, I know. I think that would help for sure. Tap into that. Michelle, go ahead. Did you have a question?
Well, I was going to say that from, because I'm not on the alumni Facebook pages because I have a lot of Facebooky kind of stuff, but from students who are former TAs of mine and things like that who have talked to me about it, sometimes too, it's purpose. So one of the big factors is like, yes, there's a lot of different ways that fundraising would help the school and help the school stay, in so many ways what it is. But sometimes like the purposes and the funds that we need, like it's not super exciting. And so sometimes it's like, oh goodness, you gotta get this, like the sanitizing stations or something. And it doesn't seem like super, super exciting, but at the same time, all of those things, like conveying the idea that any way that we can fundraise for those kinds of things, because there's only certain ways the money can be used. So if there's things that we can use to buy that for, it means that other funds are set aside to do the big stuff, you know what I mean? Like some of the other things that they're looking for. When we had it where we knew we wanted to redo all the laptops. And so we were gonna need like $90,000, but then it was going to help everybody because all the laptops were at least updated from the previous kind of big brick laptops that sometimes started on fire. So, like those batteries, like 1 or 2 of the batteries that had the issue. And so I think, time, I agree with you, Jennifer. I think time is really a big thing. And I think the idea is, I don't know if there's a way to convey many hands make light work, that if there's more volunteers, then each volunteer, their total time commitment, you're sharing that. That would be really, really amazing. I know we have so many talented people in our MSA community and in our parent community who, I don't know, if we had specific things that we needed where it's like we have committee, these are the tasks that the committee has. So we need a person who can like design a logo. And somebody's like, well, I can't do all of those other things, but I can do that. And I would be able to do it quickly and with a really, really, amazing product because that's what I do. Or, but just if we were able to figure out ahead of time some of the specific jobs or like specific portions that we would need to make our grand AFC. I don't know if that would help. I feel like maybe because then people would know what their commitment is at the beginning and be more likely to make it.
Yeah. I agree with, if we could somehow tap into something, I don't think we're the best at fundraising. That I have like figured out. But you're going to see John Gutierrez tomorrow or somebody down at St. Croix Prep tomorrow, right, John? You're heading down to do a little walkabout with them. They raise, just doing in October, every October they raise $100,000 on a walk. Like, gosh, and I think they did, Rob, hire a professional person for 2 or 3 years.
That's really what it takes. And they always, well, if you hire the right company, they always pay for themselves. They just always do because they know what they're doing and they would help motivate. Seems to me that if it's something we've never tried, it's something we ought to try. But going again, squeezing the turnip of the parents and the current kids, that's not the place to go, right? We already do the few things we do, give to the max and the dragon dinner and those kinds of things, so, again, professional fundraiser would know how to go to the right people, the people that, the retired parents of the previous school students, graduates, and then there's other people in the community that like the thought of MSA in Woodbury that have means.
Woodbury has a lot of means. It's a coming from Cali. I'm like, oh, it's like California. Okay, well, maybe Adam, you and I, since we're on that committee, we could throw this out next time we meet. Just as I know, Give to the Max. Although Give to the Max, this is the season of Give to the Max, so. But I think that's worth looking into. And go ahead.
Oh, I do want to say we have been working on some fundraising options that are box tops for educations and Amazon Smile, and we're looking at some other ones that are very passive things parents can do. Just to kind of, you sign up for Amazon Smile, and then it's just every time you order on Amazon, a little money comes to the school. So it's the stuff like that that's just very passive. They just have to set it up once and they're good to go. Because I realize sometimes it's just it's something they don't think about all the time. But if we get it very passive, they don't have to think about it anymore. So.
Kowalski's does the same, where you basically put your receipt in and we get a ching ching every month. All right. So that's that committee, and then we'll head on now to communications. So let me head here, if you would too. All right. Purpose: to ensure the effectiveness of communication between different school-related groups, as well as between school community members. The committee is also responsible for the maintenance and updating of school website and facilitating communications of important MSA, God, I can't even read, moments, events to local newspapers. And we have a chair, and then works to get information to BOD, MSA activities director, teachers, parents, students, and the community in general. The committee works with the other BOD members and task force, especially the annual fund, personnel, student, and technology task force. And then what does the committee apprise of? It's members of MSA administrative staff and any interested parents, teachers, and students. And then here they have their meetings whenever held. And then we have the chair responsibility and the committee members' responsibility to attend meetings, volunteer for specific tasks.
So this is one of those that I think the board should consider. What is the purpose that you want the committee to do or provide from a board perspective, versus an administrative perspective? How do you ensure I would just rephrase that. Is it the board's job to ensure the effectiveness of the communication between different school-related groups? Or is it to provide guidance on how that should occur? Or, I think the purpose needs to be refined some, because there are some action words in there that, from an administrator point of view, I'd say that's a job for an administration to do. The board should be providing the overall guidance of this is what we want to see done or how it's done. Go do it. Some of this could be, we want to maintain a website. And a major change on the website, probably I would say I would argue is within the realm that the board would want to make sure that is done. If we revamp the website, because that's a major change, that may be something that the board would want to look at. The hardest part, but as far as as you read that, updating the school website, really that should the board do that? Should a board committee do that, or should that be an administrative role? And I would
Well,
argue
it
that's an
hasn't-
administrative role to update the website, because unless you're talking tabs and different web pages and how you want that to look.
Well, that's the majority of what the website updates are. It's whether or not, like, how we arrange the drop downs, what the content is for different activities, like all these different groups that are part of that activity. And it's still not up to date. So I think part of the rationale of having a committee set up to focus on that is because it wasn't getting done. And so that's where they stepped in to try to make sure that there was a group who would have a specific purpose of that, because there's a lot of little details and a whole bunch of moving parts with all the activities and the announcements and things. So it was one group whose purpose was to ensure that online communication. So I do think, I mean, we can change sort of task verbs and things like that, but that role is still definitely, I think, really key.
But and the reason I bring that up is because 2 years ago, the school, we looked at redoing the website and what it looks like. That work, I would argue, is not done yet. However, the committee has kind of shifted its focus more so on the smaller, more minute details rather than looking at the big picture yet. And I guess that's, is our current website better than what it was when we first started this endeavor 2 years ago? I don't know. I still get a lot of, I can't find this on the website. I don't know if this is the best website as far as functionality. Maybe it is. Those are just big questions that I have. And those are things I think that the committee should be really looking at. And once that's done, then if we want to transition and start to drill down, I think that would be the time to do that.
Well, I don't personally, I've been back for 4 years. I don't know what we would have done without the communications committee, because even just recently, if you take a look at what happened with, trying to get Zoom links and just last year, this big thing where parents just didn't know what was going on in the classroom, and we did weekly updates, coming up with that genius idea. Then with weekly updates, which is the ensure effectiveness of communication between different school related groups, as well as between school community members, they kind of are the watchdog. Since I've been back, I feel they're the watchdog, and that has to be maintained, because I don't think we do it well in other areas. In fact, I'm pretty sure we don't. So they're the ones, I think, that secure the fact that whatever information gets there, they kind of watchdog what they can, but they have to wait on other people to get back to them. That I wish was a little better streamlined. But just like the getting Zoom links locked in with our weekly updates, and now parents knew where to go for that. I mean, that was kind of genius this year, and we had our kids all showed up. I don't have, so I don't know about the school website. I don't think we look anything like other schools. I mean, it would be nice to actually have a nice website. I'm not saying this mean, but you go to St. Croix Prep, oh my gosh, they've got the sweetest looking thing. You go to Hastings, you go to even other like New Life Academy, they got a beautiful website. Are we cheap, or is it the communication members? I don't know. I don't think their job is to create a pretty website. That needs to be that needs to be invested in.
And don't take me wrong. I'm not saying the communications committee hasn't been doing anything. I think because they've done a number of things to the benefit of the communications. But I do think, and this is the reason I brought a lot of this up, is so each committee knows what is the focus that the board wants us to really, what are we supposed to focus in on, so they can focus in on that. And ideally this purpose will change year to year, because your committee does focus in on something and accomplish something. So the next year the purpose may change a little bit, and there will be items that are on there year after year after year, because I think everybody can agree communications is an ongoing, always never-ending battle to make sure we're doing that as best as we can. So, don't construe that. I'm not saying the committee doesn't do anything, but I really do think the committee needs, and this goes back to our talk earlier, what is it that the board wants the committee to do?
Well, I think they're doing the effective communication as best possible, because I don't think people would get it otherwise. That's a big hole I feel in our school. I'm not trying to be, that's how I feel. So I think they really try to get what they can out. But I don't know. I mean, John, like a website, just to ask you, like, who would be responsible for a website? Like if you say communications committee isn't, who would be responsible for that website?
No, I'm saying, okay, and I'm not saying that communications isn't responsible for the website. But what I'm saying is 2 years ago, we started looking at the website because we knew that was a major area of improvement that we could do. I don't know, is the website better now than it was 2 years ago? Is it on the par of Nova Classical or St. Croix Prep or Eagle Ridge? Go look at their websites and compare them to ours and see how easy it is to navigate and move around. We have a lot of cool features, and once you're familiar with the website, you can move around and find a lot of things, but you have to become familiar with it. And if you're a new teacher or a new parent, can you find what you need to find? I don't know. I've been around, and I'm probably the worst person to talk about this because I go to the website repeatedly daily and move around there, so I'm familiar with where most of this stuff is. Is it helpful and user friendly for a new staff member or a new parent or a new student? I get a lot of questions of where do I find this? So that leads me to believe maybe that's an area that we really need to focus in on, is making the website as helpful as we can so that if I need to search something, I can find it quickly.
So parents out there, what do you feel? I mean, you've used the website and communication and all.
I think it's improved a lot in the last couple of years. I don't find a problem with it. I don't know.
I guess just overall, my thought would maybe be aesthetics, and maybe that's where it's a little bit different. And I'm just playing with some of the other websites, like some of the aesthetics are different now. Ours, just no offense to whoever's worked on this, a little bit clunky, right? It just looks a little bit like an older government one. This is just kind of how I feel. It's not a bad feeling. It's just, it looks like that versus, some of the more like Squarespace or some of the different companies that focus on making your websites do it a little bit more fluid. And I'm just playing with some of the other ones. So I think it's more aesthetic. Maybe to John's point, if you know where you're looking, or if the stuff is there and you can find it. So it's hard to pick on it whether it's visually appealing. I think that's not the point. The point is probably does it have the information we need? The visually appealing should maybe be a lower priority than making sure that people get the content. But I'm biased a little bit. I also like to have it look nice too when I want to go through it. I don't want it to look formidable like some of the government sites look a little bit imposing and not user friendly. So maybe that's the same for other parents. I'm not sure.
So back to one of Annie's original questions, whose job is it to make the website better? Whose job description is that?
And that is not on anybody's job description.
So that to me is a problem. Yeah,
because fundamentally it's always fallen on the communications committee to do that.
But
since I've been here.
But if no one works,
well, Justin Gehring is really the
right.
Justin Gehring is the webmaster.
Has he been hired to make it better?
That's kind of thing. So far, I was on the committee. I'm not on it anymore, but from what I understood, and Maggie definitely let me know if it's shifting or if I'm misunderstanding. But the whole point was that for years it was hard to find things. We did a number of parent surveys and student surveys where they couldn't find information. And so the first goal was just to make sure the things were there and that the tabs made sense so you knew what was going to be on it. so that, oh, this is the extracurricular tab. When I click here, I find extracurriculars. Like, it was more utilitarian for a while because it just needed an overhaul in terms of usability. And so, and it's been kind of a Herculean effort to get everything updated and make sure that it's current, like that all of the things are syncing up, because, you know, some systems are outside of our website, like our school and stuff. And so just to make sure that those are in sync and accurate. And that's already been kind of a long process, but I think is much, much better. So then from there, then you can work on aesthetics, but for right now, the task is accuracy. As far as I've known, for the last 2 years, the task has been accuracy.
Yeah, and I think if you don't have somebody who works the website, if you're not granted that access, how can they do it? The committee can't do it without somebody who actually is the one who runs the website. That's my thought.
And I'll say this, Justin does whatever has been asked of him to do that, within what he can do. I mean, some of it's coding and, you know, way beyond my level of understanding with the computers, but he has always been willing to do what the committee and the school has asked of him. Often to his basically donating time to the school more than he should, but he has always been willing to do that and seek out ways. And it does not look the same way it looked several years ago, and it is organized better. Yeah, I guess if the board is fine with the website, then maybe that's not a focus. Maybe we need to focus on, you know, the accuracy or some other part of the website. But fundamentally, that, you know, that goes back to if you have that on the committee's purpose, you know, make sure it's clear to the committee what it is that you want them to be doing.
All right. Well,
And
you know what? I was going to say after yeah, just closing thoughts with you, Michelle, when I'm done.
Yeah.
It's 6:02.
I'll also throw it out there really quick that communications committee and the technology task force, I mean, they should be working hand in hand. So the communications committee can be a clearinghouse to help that out, but we have an actual task force for technology and they rarely meet, but I think that they need to, because I think that could be a way to like kind of streamline that and really assess what that is. I know that they were looking at hardware stuff, but that's not the only thing that they can do. And there's people that signed up for it from staff, like it's ready to go. It just needs a job. And so what about that?
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, listen, 6:03, time for a break and back for business at 6:15. We'll see you then.
What?
All righty. We are at 6:15. So I'm going to call to order. Call to order at 6:15. We have a quorum and then some, everybody. All right. We are so happy to have our student rep Paula here with us, and just delighted to have you. So Paula, would you please, and you'll do this every time you're here, would you please read the mission and vision statement of our school?
Okay, yeah, so our mission, we provide accelerated curricula in all subjects with an emphasis on math and science. Our vision, to be an innovative, sustainable model of academic excellence that creates well-rounded, lifelong listeners and global citizens.
Excellent. All right, so because, so Paula, just for your information, we have to take roll call by name because we are distant learning. Otherwise, we'd be raising our hand, I think, were the old days. So I'm going to go ahead and take attendance by roll call. If you would please say here. Annie Cardenas here. Dan Ellingston.
Here.
Cody Schneip.
Here.
Michelle Kurkowski.
Here.
Judy Seeberger.
Here.
Adam Bartz.
Here.
Robert Kruger.
Here.
Jennifer Bartle.
Here.
Maggie Burgraff.
Here.
Paula, say your last name one more time.
Acapco.
Okay, I would have gone close. Paula Akopko.
Here.
Jenny, thank you. Jenny Abs. I don't think they're here. I'm hopefully it gets John Garecki. Garek.
I'm here as well.
Thank you.
I will send Jenny an email, just see if she'll be here.
Okay, so Jenny is the only one absent. Everyone is here. I am going to ask if somebody would like to take item 3 and motion to approve the agenda.
Cody will motion.
Is there a second?
This is Adam. I will second.
All right. So a discussion. So is there any discussion on the agenda? No? Okay. Then I will roll call.
I actually had one thing.
Yes.
For policy 802, because we already discussed the changes needed to be made by the policy last time, is it okay to just have it be consent instead of discussion? I was thinking about that today. Sorry, I should have emailed you earlier. But since the changes that are there are the ones we already talked about.
Yes, I'm fine with that. So I would,
Is that okay, or does anybody?
no, that's
Seems
cool.
to me at this point, since it's there, if there's no discussion, it's just approved. I don't know it's worth moving to consent at
Yeah.
this point, because then we're going to have to, you're going to have to go through the whole process of
Yeah.
amendment, and then
Yes, I agree. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Michelle. So we will keep the policy 802 under old and unfinished business. So I will roll call no further discussion and approval of agenda item 3. Dan Ellingston,
Yes.
Cody Schnape,
Yes.
Michelle Kurkowski,
Yes.
Judy Seeberger,
Yes.
Adam Barth,
Yes.
Robert Kruger,
yes.
Jennifer Bartle,
Yes.
Maggie Burgraff,
Yes.
Annie Cardenas, yes. That's all yes. Motion carries. Is there any conflict of interest at this time that any board member would like to bring up? Okay. All right, so I do have some open forum letters I would like to read right now. So let me get those out for you. Okay. I thank parents for sending those in, community members. All right. Dear board members, I am writing in response to a very discouraging experience I had last week concerning attendance policy and procedures expected by the school. I understand that things are in constant state of change due to COVID-19, and I've been doing my best to keep up with these changes and expectations and be flexible with things as they are not always able to go according to plan. I am writing to ask the school to do the same. I'm sharing my experience to help the board understand a need to change policy and procedure in order to not frustrate parents and students who are trying very hard to make these adjustments. In my situation, my son had all of his behind the wheel instructions canceled until further notice this past spring due to COVID-19. We waited all summer to be scheduled and were given very little choice in dates and times we could get these lessons in before his test came due. He was scheduled during class for his first lesson. I followed the instructions given on the weekly updates for the updated plan for all e-learning to distant learning, which included calling in for our child were to miss a class. I called in before start of the day to notify the school of this time that he would miss. My child arranged to make up the work. I was called after the time of my child's missed class and notified that his absence was unexcused. I was told that I had to fill out a 503 form 5 days prior to the absence for it to be excused. I understood this was the case when we were in person. I was operating under what I understood the set of expectations were under distant learning. See weekly update emailed to parents which states, attendance reminder, you must call in the attendance line if your students will be absent from any classes with the phone number. I am asking the board to consider amending the school policy on attendance due to COVID-19 epidemic and distant learning model to accommodate for all changes at home learning, as well as hurdles in scheduling appointment COVID-19 have created. We are not operating under the same circumstances in which we were when these policies were made. I also think that excusing behind the wheel lessons for driver's ed during distant learning would be prudent, as this is a major change we are facing at this time. Thank you for your attention and understanding. Sincerely, Elizabeth Andretta, mother of a MSA student. Okay, so there's that. Then I have a second one. Dear Chair of the Board, this is Swang O, a parent of a 10th and 7th grader at MSA. I would like to bring one item to the open forum, that MSA needs to continue paying attention to its academic excellence even during the difficult distant learning time. Last week, I found out MSA might not offer 10th graders PSAT tests this fall due to health and safety concerns. I only found this out by asking school counselor about the test date, and I was told a decision had been made not to offer the test to 10th graders. First of all, I feel the school should not make such a decision canceling the PSAT on its 10th graders without consulting the parents. Second, the PSAT is an important academic test that it deserves some extra effort when needed, and it should be offered so our students are not missing it out. Considering neighboring school districts are offering it to their 10th graders this fall. Can we add this to Monday? Oh, can we add this to Monday's meeting? So I said I would share it. And I want to thank you very much for that. And then I have another one. Dear MSA Board of Directors, I am writing on behalf of my struggling 8th grade daughter and for all of the other struggling students and parents that for whatever reason aren't speaking up. Although my daughter is performing as well as she normally does academically, she is significantly struggling socially and emotionally. She spends 9 hours per day alone in the house. She is lonely. She calls me crying. She is isolated. She is anxious. I am worried for her all day while I am at work. I know that I am not alone. I can't even imagine what parents of 6th and 7th grade students are experiencing. Prior to MSA forcing her into distant learning, she loved school, her teachers, learning, and MSA. She is losing that love. I have watched many BOD meetings in which board members and Mr. G have said that MSA will work to have students on campus in some form so that students can participate socially. So far, that hasn't happened. I do not understand why students can't be on campus in small groups, especially while the weather is still nice out. I do not understand why 833 can be in hybrid and we are not. I do not understand why MSA has not worked with the Minnesota Department of Ed to work on a plan for our unique building situation to get students on campus, at least in hybrid. I do not understand why parents were not given the option of distant learning versus in person. If that was done, your pool of in-person learners would have been considerably smaller, making social distancing more manageable for in-person learners. I do not understand why staffing logistics were put before students, social, emotional, and mental health. I do not understand why the BOD determined that distant learning will go all the way until January when COVID numbers can change so quickly. My daughter cries because she wants to go to school so bad. Listen to that, teachers. Kids are crying, begging to go to school. I will not sit by and watch her sink into depression because her school won't open up and let her in. I just heard on the radio that since March, more teenagers have died from suicide than COVID. Please reconsider your decision about distant learning. Sincerely, Jessica Coatfis. Okay. And then I have this one. Uh, Hold on. There's one more here. I gotta find it. Let me see where I put it. Let me see. Oh, here it is. Dear BOD members, it was brought to my attention last week from another 10th grade parent that PSAT was only going to be offered to 11th graders this year, and the 10th graders would not be included because of the pandemic and more restrictions that are in place. I am not sure who made these initial decisions, but it was frustrating to hear that changes have not been made and parents, students have not been informed of this change when it greatly affected our 10th grade students. There are a couple of parents who emailed Mr. G, Ms. Knutson, and Ms. Froberg, and I did hear on Friday that the decision has been reversed and they were working on a way to allow 10th graders to take the test. I really appreciate that administration was willing to rethink their initial decision and make some accommodations to include the 10th graders. This is one thing I really like about MSA and feeling like the parents have some input into the school. I would encourage the administration and the board of directors to try and continue to have as many things as normal as possible without just canceling events or important activities because that is the easy thing to do. So many things have just been canceled for our kids rather than trying to think outside of the box and innovate to continue to meet state guidelines and yet keep activities growing. I also want to thank you all for sending out the survey from last week regarding distant learning. It was very nice to be able to express the good and bad things about distant learning, and I appreciate you knowing that the board of directors was looking for feedback as to what is working and what is not. Thank you all for your dedication to MSA and working hard to keep it the top high school in the state. Sincerely, Kim Jensen, 10th grade parent. And I believe this is the last one. Dear Madame Chair Cardenas, oh, I'm so fancy. Director, uh, Director Mr. G and Board of Directors. I am writing tonight to question the student handbook regarding the release of parent and student data to an outside vendor. Recently, student photos were taken before the first day of school. This was done through a different party that had been done in the past. However, with a vendor that has serviced MSA for other photography needs such as graduation. I am bringing in light a situation that arose from the change in vendors that concerns myself and other parents greatly. My family has had school photos taken for the past 9 years through both of my children's educational journey. During this time, forms and emails were sent out to the parents before school picture day. If you signed up online, you registered your email address. If you signed up using the papers form for your order, you had the option to put in your email address. At no time was the student email used or given. This was the method used both for LifeTouch and for, oh, here's a big word, Kemet Muller, when they did the senior class graduation photos. I was a bit surprised to not receive a flyer or form prior to photos being taken and called to inquire at the school. I was told that we would receive an email with our child's photo and we would be able to order from the website using that link. At this point in time, I figured the email would be come to MSA, not Kettmiller. I was shocked and surprised to find that Kettmiller had obtained not only my email address, but also my husband's email address, and I most definitely was not prepared for my 7th grader's email to be utilized to solicit a photo order from that repeatedly, including an email received today stating that he had missed the free shipping deadline. We had received no less than 4 emails to 3 email addresses each from Kettmiller. When I first received the emails this fall from Kettmiller, I looked online for a policy, finding none that would really fit distributing of personal data to an outside vendor. I inquired of a few people who were more knowledgeable of these policies. Although there is a policy that states data is considered public, I completely understand that for adult employees. I am concerned about data being released to my minor child. I don't even have access to a student directory through a password secured Skyward account this year. Yet a vendor has been handed over my access to my husband's and my minor child's email address. When Kettmiller was the vendor used for my daughter's senior class composite and CAP filing photos, we had information forms to fill out, granting access and giving them our email address. This was one email address used a few times between notifying us that proofs were ready to view, that orders were ready, and any special pricing was ending, as well as to deliver our digital prints. What happens if there is a data breach with that company? Will we be notified? Are there any protections for us, given that I am owner of my email address, did not give them permission or access to it? This is very disappointing to me as a parent at MSA, and I ask the board of directors to adopt a policy stating that our students' email addresses will continue to remain to be protected. Should there be a need for parents' email addresses to be provided to a vendor, I believe that we should have the opportunity to opt in or out for said communication. Thank you in advance for your time and your commitment to making MSA a better school than we are today. Mary App. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. I will get these to the people that will answer those for you. And if it's me, you'll hear from me. All right. Thank you so much. Okay. On to business number or item number 5, approval of minutes. Would somebody like to motion item 5A, Board of Director workshop and regular minutes for August 17th, 2020?
I just had one error. I think I saw the date. I'm looking for it now. The dates were incorrect.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think we'll motion it first onto the floor and then
That's
the
fine.
discussion. Yeah.
Okay.
So would somebody like to motion that, please?
I can motion. This is Dan.
Is there a second?
This is Maggie. I second.
Great. And that's exactly right. So go ahead, Dan.
Two things. One was, and maybe I'm looking for the page, sorry, but it said September 15th was our meeting, and it should probably be the 21st,
Yes.
It looks like.
I think it was page 13 in the.
That looks right. Yep, page 13.
Yes. And both the workshop and the meeting were supposed to be September 21st and not the 15th. So if we can make sure to get that changed. Other than that, any other discussion points on approving the minutes? Okay, I will roll call a vote on that. And where's my other, hold on. All right. By the way, I'm putting myself last. This was a suggestion from one of our board members that I thought was a very smart. So I would like to roll call for a motion to approve or not approve. Dan Ellingston.
Yes.
Cody Schneip.
Abstain. I wasn't present for the meeting.
Michelle Kurkowski.
Yes.
Judy Seeberger,
Yes.
Adam Bartz,
Yes.
Robert Kruger,
Yes.
Jennifer Bartle,
Yes.
Maggie Burgraff,
Yes.
Annie Cardenas, yes. So that would be 8 yeses, 1 abstention. So motion carries. All right. Chair's report. I'll briefly give you an overview of the workshop. We discussed some of our COVID-related items, dealing with finding out where we can schedule the rescheduling our strategic plan due to this has been a lot of work and way overwhelming with COVID and distant learning. So we are in the process of doing that. We discussed up to, I think, 3 or 4 committees and what we have online for those and how do they still fit, how do they don't fit, maybe some suggestions on how they can work better with the board. And that's kind of where we ended with workshop and director's report, John.
I do have one update for you on page 15. So if you have your packet, page 15, I have an update on the MDH ratings. And just be aware that these ratings do change depending on what day you look at it. I tend to pull my numbers on Thursdays, and by Friday they do adjust them a little bit. But I have the new ratings for the week ending of September 17th for Washington County. So those new COVID rates for Washington County are 17.21. For Ramsey County, which is not in the report, but for your awareness, is 16.57, which is down from 19.43. And Dakota County is at a rate of 21.19, which is down from 23.91. So those are as of September 17th. So that's the most accurate information that I can give you from MDE and MDH as far as the COVID rate. Other than that, that's the only update or change that I have in the report.
John, I had a question for you, just clarification. What day is the St. Croix prep? Is it tomorrow or is it the 28th?
Just wait 1 second. Let me pull up my calendar.
Because on the calendar I have it the 28th, but in this one it says the 22nd.
Yes. So the 28th. It is the 28th at 4:30.
Okay,
yes.
That sounds right. Page 14, I just saw it was listed the 22nd, so I think that one was just a typo. But I got scared I was going to miss it tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. So you should change that to the 28th. That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for catching that, because there are a number of people that they're on a calendar invite, but I won't want them to read that and get confused as well. So
yep.
Yeah. So is there anything?
Can you say that? Can you say the date again, just so I have it for the notes too?
It is September 28th. That's a Monday at 4:30 at St. Croix.
Back to the numbers, John. I mean, that's encouraging, right? To see numbers going down. I don't know if there are any, we have, I guess, we should have a discussion point on COVID in general, but to see, I mean, it had been going up for week after week, right?
Right. Yep.
When I looked at it, so this was encouraging.
Well, and the one that really caught my eye was Washington County basically dropped 5 percentage points from 1 week. So I don't know, that doesn't take into account the Labor Day, what happens over Labor Day weekend. But overall state numbers, it's, as far as schools go, they're trending in the wrong direction. But in the metro here, at least those 3 counties, we're trending in the right direction as far as COVID numbers going down. I know there's a big concern statewide that we're going to start to see a spike going up. We're not seeing that right now, but I guess we'll find out Thursday or Friday when we see the new numbers. But I would anticipate those numbers, being somewhat stable and then probably rising because of the Labor Day weekend and everybody out again.
And we do have a spot for that under
Right,
business
yep.
item. Yeah. So I do have a question though. On page 14, you had a COVID-19 liaison team began to meet. And so I did have some question. I don't know, I probably missed some of it, but what exactly is the COVID-19 liaison team and who does it consist of?
So the liaison team is a team that looks at, and it's comprised of a number of board members, parents and teachers and administrators. I think the three directors are on that. The team, basically, there's three purposes. One is to look at the surveys that are being sent out. One is to look at updates for our plans. And then the third one is, escaping me right now. Give me a moment. I'll probably think of it. But there's three main purposes of that particular team. And it is really looking at, is our plan working? What do we need to do to upgrade it to make it better? And then also, as far as communication goes, what do we need to communicate with the community, if anything, as far as updating our website or our plan? So those are kind of the three main purposes. And we will be sending out a survey. Our next survey is coming out the first Thursday of October, which is October 1st. That's our goal, to send out the next survey. That will allow us a little more time to look at the comments and get more, drill down a little more with the comments, because as you look at the amount of responses, you got roughly 500 comments per survey to read through. And when the survey, we had the closing date of the survey was Monday, and then my report had to be ready to go by Thursday. So it really give the team much time to dig into the data and come up with a lot of recommendations for the board. But ultimately, that's the team's purpose, is to look at that and then make some recommendations. What do we need to do? There are a lot of different things obviously in play, other than just the survey itself, that needs to be taken into account. But is this working? It's really a working group to keep a pulse, so to speak, of our distance learning plan, and what can we do to improve it? And are we getting to a point where we could consider re-looking at a different learning plan? And with the goal is, I believe in December, the board's going to have to make another decision as to what they want to do in the second semester. Long-winded answer, sorry.
Right. We made a decision with a recommendation from you, though, right?
Right.
Yes. Right.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. The group is to make recommendations, not decisions.
Yes. Correct. And then, all right. Great.
And then I would just like add on, simply because I did go through that document so many times. This committee is one of the ones the Minnesota Department of Education and Health, like Walls's document that he sent out about opening schools. They want schools to create this committee, to communicate and to do those things. So it's part of that larger state required document too. So it references back to that as well.
All right. Thank you so much. Well, so are you should we just ask you, are you going to talk about your director's report, John, or you just have it all in there? I know we have a lengthy, is there anything you want to pull out of that, or?
I guess no, I hadn't planned on pulling anything specifically out of that. I can do that in the future minutes if you want me to. I guess I'm going on past precedent, and the assumption is that, I'm going to submit a report and you're going to read it. And if you have questions, you can ask. If you want me to start pulling,
No, we don't. We do not.
But that adds to the length of the meeting.
So I do. Okay, I do have a couple questions, so I might ask. First of all, so one of the things we asked was COVID compliance on everything on 17. I'm on page 17, and with the activities handbook, coach and advisor. So all of that has been reworked, as I see is on there for the high school assistant director. So those are posted, newest rebs on the website, so people can go there and have that. Correct?
As far as I'm aware, yes, they were to be posted. Yes, I haven't gone to verify it though.
Yeah, I would, because you're kind of in charge of that, so I would.
Right.
And then I don't know why we have on there for back to school night, because we never really had a back to school night. That was on page 17, but because I don't remember one. I remember we had a pickup, but that's that. And then I think that's all I have for the question on that. So great. Anyone else have any question?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I just want to know what are you hoping to accomplish with your visit to, is it St. Croix Prep? I've lost which page that is.
So the visit to St. Croix Prep is a number of reasons. It's mostly fact finding because they did an expansion and were able to get some major funding for it, or donations, we'll say. So a lot of it is to kind of pick Mr. Gutierrez's brain a little bit as far as what they went through and did. The other thing is to see their campus, to start getting ideas of what works and what doesn't work as far as a charter school. And we do, not that we're the same, but we compete academically. We compete against each other, and anything we can do to help each other get better helps both of us. But mostly it's just fact finding and information gathering.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay.
Yeah, I think I was going to double check in and see, because you had introduced some of our new hires, but you didn't in your report mention the new math hire.
Yes, that's a sad. That is one thing with the new, I guess, with the new format, that it is taking me a little bit of time to get adjusted to the new format versus what was the old format. But thanks for bringing that up, Michelle. We do have a new math teacher that started at the beginning of the year. We actually have 3 new teachers. They're all former employees of MSA, so they're really not new. The new math teacher is Miss Amanda Froberg, who is teaching the 6th grade math. She was here as an EA 4 years ago, I believe. Miss Babb has come back to join the Spanish department, excuse me. She was here 2 years ago. And then the third one, now you put me on the spot, is another, now I'm drawing a blank who the third one is, and it's going to really bother me.
Julianne.
Oh, yes, is in special ed. Thank you very much. Julianne Farrell. She has joined the special ed team. We had a situation that developed in the special ed department where we have a student that needed a one-to-one teacher. So there was a little reorganizing. Mr. Dombrowski has agreed to take an out-of-field form and teach that position as a one-to-one. That opened up a position for a special ed teacher, which Ms. Farrell has agreed to take. She has been a long-term sub, or short-term sub for multiple years at MSA. So all of them are used to MSA, know the students already, which is really a blessing when you go into distance learning, that they already have an idea of what MSA is about. But those are the 3 new teachers that we have hired. And that's pretty much the staff that we've hired for the new school year. Thank you, Ms. Krakowski, for reminding me of that.
Yeah, I knew those 2 because that was in the last minutes. But just curiosity, because she was she's my student teacher for chemistry. Is she licensed in math?
So she is not currently licensed in math. However, she is applied for an out-of-field permission form, which we have 4 teachers that are actually teaching in a similar situation. She is about a year away from getting her math teaching license. She has taken courses in middle school math teaching. So and the other part of that is being a science teacher. Some of that math you do on a daily basis teaching anyway. But yeah, she has a out of field permission from MDE to teach that particular course.
Okay, so that's through the department, and I'm just curious. That
Yep.
surprised me. All right. All right. Student representative update. Paula, do you have anything for us?
The only thing that I do have is about the Student Advisory Council that will be starting up next Monday. And basically the council's purpose is to advise the BOD and bring up new proposals concerning student issues involving equity, curriculum. So that's the only update I really have.
I did see that in the website and read about that. That's awesome. All right, we are going to have various reports from our board committees and task force. So I'll start with academics, and Ms. Kurkowski, anything you wanted to add to the notes or sum up with the notes? I
forgot to unmute myself. When we were looking, our academics committee met, and one of the things we talked about was possibly changing academics committee dates to the second Monday of the month instead of the first. It would still allow us to have fabulous Maggie Bergraff get the notes ready to rock, or myself if Maggie's busy, and then I will do them too. But so then we are able to be a little bit more current before we have our board notes and any board recommendations. And then we had a couple of items for discussion. One of them had more to do with the planning with regard to the second semester. Mrs. Punsack had shared information with regard to the survey question about whether or not families would stay distance only regardless of what the school decided for semester 2, and if families would go with what MSA decided. And about 2/3 of the families said they would go with what MSA decided, and about 1/3 said that they would go distance regardless. So in terms of planning, and as the board, as we're starting to look at how do we evaluate for a hybrid system, how do we start structuring, do we need to, as we start looking at the viability of that option, we will also need to be very, very careful and aware that, at least according to our current information, about 1/3 of the students would fully remain home and be distance learners within the program. And so then our hybrid plan would have to address the needs of that fairly sizable chunk of our student population. So it's just something to be aware of. And I know there have been a couple of parent questions and community questions about other schools that they have a sort of distance academy. Those schools are also large district systems, and those teachers are only teaching that class as a distance class. We don't have that luxury. So when we're looking at the distance plan that we have within a hybrid system, there are going to be limitations. One of the beautiful things about a small school is we know everybody, and we have so many wonderful things about small school. One of the challenges of a small school, we don't have a levy capacity, and we don't have a lot of staff because we don't have levy capacity. And so it's a balancing act. And so that's one of the things when we start planning, we really have to look at carefully to see how to make that be effective, promote learning, promote social emotional growth. But it was a pretty sizable chunk.
All right, thank you, Michelle. Annual fund, Adam.
So the annual fund committee met last week. The notes are pretty straightforward. One parent brought up the idea of United Way campaign as a way for people to leverage United Way donations through their employer. However, those directions are kind of they vary from employer to employer. And so MSA does have kind of a list of corporations that do a donation, like have a donation matching program, but that list is also about 30 pages long, and may be out of date. It does cite a couple of sources at the bottom, but that may need to get looked at. So if there's anybody out in the community that is interested in donating that way, they'll want to contact their HR department. And then Tom is going to be creating a working group, which will report to the committee in order to get some things off the ground and get some actions rolling.
Great, thank you. Communications, Maggie.
Communications met on the 9th. I was unable to attend the meeting until the very, very end when we set the next meeting, but talked a lot about how it went the first day rollout and the information we were able to get to families, it looks like, and that although it went out a little later than everyone would have liked, what did go out was pretty good and it was super helpful, and most of the kids got exactly where they needed to be at the beginning of the day on the first day. So that was a positive. That we want to keep training up as new things roll out. Justin's had it pretty good and up to date, but as new things come, he will update training as needed. Again, brought up that teachers, it'd be nice if teachers had a Google Classroom that admin could just put all the stuff in and then we could just get those forms. And the next meeting is going to be the 7th of October, because it is a no school day on the 14th of October.
Oh, I'm glad Cody's here to remind me I'm muted. Thank you, Cody. All right, we did not meet in August. We are meeting Wednesday, so I will have notes for you next board meeting. And so that's financials. I'm going to go into a motion. If somebody would like to motion to approve the financials, then we can discuss them. Would somebody like to motion to approve item 9, financials?
This is Adam, so moved.
Cody will second.
Thank you. All right, we're going to discuss this now. We have to discuss first, right? We discuss and then we vote. Because I do have a. No, we open to bring it to the floor, which is to motion. And then once it's on the floor, we discuss and then we vote.
Okay. So if you go to page 73, that's the start of our financials. Our cash was good, and they did, after going over our building, they got our deficit down to, I lost the number. Last year's deficit down to, John, can you help me here? Oh, $35,040.
Yep, you got it.
And I believe it was close, just over $100,000 before they finished everything off. So we ended up being well within our, we're fine for our bond covenants and everything. And then we need to approve our check register on page, starts on page 87 through 97. And then after that, I have some other things to report.
And so John, help me out here. I know so when we approve the financials, is that everything, or should we discuss what also Cody has to discuss?
No, that's a separate discussion.
Okay,
So,
all right. So I just do have a couple questions on the financials. I'm getting training on this. I
Yeah,
figured.
go ahead.
So first of all, do you know there's a lot of like insufficient fund charges for Old National Bank? I don't know who's responsible for that, but we're getting charged for that. And that's just my thing. Like, I hate to go to an ATM and being charged. So I like page 94, 92. So I don't know what's up with that. Just thought I'd throw that out there, that we're getting charged for insufficient funds on several times. And then I'm just wondering if we're reducing our expenditures because we don't have students first semester to maybe save for hiring for additional help for distant learning. Just wondering if we go hybrid. Has any of those conversations been talked about or discussed?
We have some of that in our budget. We also have some of those things will be covered. We have been getting some additional grant money. We got some money from the CARES Act, and there's another one I can't remember off the top of my head that covers some of our COVID related stuff. Okay. Which is actually part of my report.
Okay, so I'll just wait for that then.
Okay.
But that's perfect. All right. Would somebody like to motion to approve 9 financials? Do I have a motion to approve those?
This is Rob. I so move.
Is there a second? Oh, I already did that, didn't I? I'm going to roll call. Dang it. I don't know what happens to me on financials. If you go back and watch videos, that's where I fall apart every night. Must be something about money. I don't know what it is. I'm sorry.
So I'm going to withdraw my motion.
Yeah, throw out your motion. Sorry, Aya. She's probably like, dang it, Annie, here she goes again. And the second. So I just need to roll call. Since we're done with discussion, I'll roll call a vote. How does that sound? And I'll try and do better. I'm going to be better next time with financials. All right. So do roll call vote to approve the financials. Let me grab my packet. Dan Ellingston.
Yes.
Cody Schneip.
Yes.
Michelle Kurkowski.
Yes.
Judy Seeberger.
Yes.
Yes.
Adam Bartz.
Yes.
Robert Kruger.
Yes.
Jennifer Bartle.
Yes.
Maggie Burgraff.
Yes.
Annie Cardenas. Yes. Motion carries. That is all yeses. All right. And now we'll head. Your report's a little further down, Cody. Is that correct? Or should I go into Dan with his school expansion?
Oh, yeah. We move them to items for discussion. So, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Dan, I didn't forget you. You should see all my, remember how I put all these markings on here. School expansion, I'm excited to hear, although I read about it.
Yeah, so we got most of the notes here, and thanks, John, for capturing the notes. But we had some good turnout, actually. So I think one of our comments was, how do we get people to come involved? And we had quite a few. So hopefully we can keep that momentum going, and anyone's welcome to join. I think it's an exciting topic, right? So people are interested to chime in. And I was also happy to see we have a lot of folks within our community that have experience in expansion. So I think that's going to be great for expanding their own corporate headquarters or what have you. So I think we're actually in a pretty good spot there. So listed here is just a couple comments I'll highlight. We're setting up the schedule for the year, what we want to accomplish. So if you think about it, we've already kind of in previous committees decided that we want to move forward with an expansion and some of the reasons why. So this one was more of like, what do we want to do and how do we get some sense of urgency going here? So Robert, you'd asked, why are we visiting a school? That was one of the things that we wanted to do, was to kind of check out some of the local schools and see how we couldn't be inspired and try to capture and steal any ideas that we can from there. And then we also have the desire to give a brief to a company, which we need to agree on which company and what's that brief look like. So probably our next meeting on Thursday, we could take a look at, and John, you and I need to agree on the agenda, I guess, but I think one thing would be, what's our wish list? What are our aspirations? What do we want our next school to look like? And so I think we have a lot of people who want to, provide some input to that. And if you have the opportunity, Thursday will be a great time to chime in on those ones. And then we do have that the visit next Monday on the 28th. So if anyone's interested, let John or myself know. So I think more to come as we get a little bit things more concrete. This first one is kind of get to know some of the folks and we'll have another meeting this week.
Excellent. Thank you, Dan. And policy, Michelle Kurkowski.
Sorry, I was trying to finish writing up the things.
I know,
Gotta
it's
space
hard
out
to
my
do.
stuff.
It's hard to do both for sure.
So for policy, we didn't have a formal meeting because we just had fairly standard updates except one. So for policy, we have the updated that we're going to approve for the masks, and we have our annual review updates. They didn't really have needed updates for the annual review. But we will be looking, and the face covering one as well is just a leftover. But the one that we're going to look at is the 522 Student Non-Sex Discrimination Title IX, and I will send out the link to the webinar that I watched. It's about an hour long, and I fully understand that that is a really big time commitment, but this policy is intense. It is a policy written by lawyers at the federal level for lawyers. If you read this, you will see this is definitely an intense policy, and it's about sex non-discrimination, about sexual harassment. And it's, if you remember, there was a whole bunch of rework at the university level of how harassment was investigated and reported. And so this is a rework downward from there. There's been a number of requests made, formal proposals made to have this delayed because schools do not have the ability to comply with it as it is right now. One of the first requirements is that our Title IX coordinator has formal training in this new policy. That kind of training doesn't exist yet. So we have to enact it. They have not delayed it, but just have to keep on it. It requires a number of different individuals with very specific tasks with regard to investigations. So this is one that I will send out the link. They talk about what it is and what it is for. Individually, I have very specific concerns about this policy that I can't even do anything about because we are required to implement it by the federal government. But it's a lot, and it's definitely a lot to kind of like wrap your head around. So I will send the link out to it. You don't have to watch the webinar, but as a board, we are ultimately responsible for the investigation, for the process of investigation and what that is. So it would be, I was like completely swimming after these two guys who are very skilled legally were trying to explain all the different things that the schools were going to do and what it was different from before. And even just from that, I knew that we really have to look at this one carefully and make sure we implement it very carefully. Definitely.
All right, thank you, Michelle. All right, 10, we have nothing under the consent agenda, but we are going to move into the business item 11A to discuss. So we still discuss it though, Michelle, right? Because then it takes 2 discussions on the board and then we can approve it next. Is that correct?
We had our for the 802.
Yes.
We already have had 2. So we had the initial discussion, and then I came back to you with the revisions, and this is just the copy with the revisions that we discussed as a board.
So we have
really,
it as, yeah.
If any, so really, unless anybody has an objection, we can just motion, it's ready to pass. And same thing with the COVID face covering. We had our initial read and our discussion. We can open it up for discussion, which is totally fine. But I don't have any new updates about it or anything. So it's more just about complying with I fixed the edits we talked about. But 802, this is kind of like a mini third read.
Yeah. Is that okay? Is that all right to approve?
We have to motion it, but.
Motion, I mean, no, I know that. I just want to make sure. All right. I'll go ahead and move to approve policy 802, item 11A, disposition of obsolete equipment and material with additional procedures required. Do I have a second?
I second. Jennifer.
All right, great. So is there any discussion on this? All right, I will go ahead and do a roll call vote. Dan Ellingston?
Yes.
Cody Schnee?
Yes.
Michelle Kurkowski?
Yes.
Jennifer Seeberger?
Judy Seeberger, yes.
Judy, thank you. You know what? I go to bed, I tell you, I lose it at this. Judy Seeberger. Thank you. Adam Bartz?
Yes.
Robert Kruger?
Yes.
Jennifer Bartle. Aren't you glad I didn't call you Judy? Jennifer Bartle.
Yes.
Maggie Burgraff,
Yes.
Annie Cardenas, yes. That is all yeses, motion carries. I would also like to move to approve policy 808, COVID-19 face covering. Do I have a second?
This is Adam. I will second.
Are there any discussion items here? I actually had excellent here, Michelle. That was a very well done, by the way, policy. That came from two MDH, MDE. That was a very well written policy. So that's my discussion point. Anybody else? All right. I will go ahead and roll call a vote to approve. Dan Ellingston,
Yes.
Cody Schneip,
Yes.
Michelle Kurkowski,
Yes.
Judy Seeberger,
Yes.
Adam Bartz,
Yes.
Robert Kruger,
Yes.
Jennifer Bartle,
Yes.
Maggie Burgraff,
Yes.
Annie Cardenas, yes. That is all board members, yes. Motion carries. Item 11C, discuss review of job description access for stakeholders. John?
So this is on your board packet. It's on page 118, at least that's where it starts. It contains 3 pages, 118, 119, and 120. Page 118, we basically took the job descriptions and broke them down. This is kind of some forward planning for your awareness that, you know, as we go to an expansion, we're really going to break, and I want to say break the school up, but move the school to a middle school, high school, and more of a district level kind of scenario, so that if you're in high school and you have a question, you know I'm going to go to the high school office to ask the question. If I've got a middle school student, I go to the middle school office to ask my question to get an answer. If it's a district level or I'm not happy with the answer that I got in the middle school or high school, I go to the district level. So it kind of feeds into it's somewhat of traditional school district setup, but then in each one of those pages, then it kind of breaks down those people that are there and some of the major job descriptions or areas that they're responsible for. I'm assuming that this is kind of what the board wanted to look at and see the major areas of, you know, I've got a question about who I pay or I got to pay somebody. I can go there and find, oh, that's the business manager, that's Ken Lacoste. He's the person I need to contact. I've got a question about, you know, I wanna call the school office and tell them how fantastic my middle school teacher is doing. Who do I contact? Well, I go to the middle school office and, oh, I can send that to Mr. Johnston, or maybe I want to send it to Amanda Stout, or maybe both. So it kind of gives a little more clarity for not only staff, but mostly parents of where to go, who to contact. If the board is fine with this setup, then the goal is then to get it put on the website so parents and teachers can start using it. Mostly parents and students.
I find this very helpful, John. I think this is where we need to go. And then as these things come up where we say, well, wait a minute, nobody's really in charge of the website. We've got to find a spot of who that belongs to. And so there should be somebody that when we have a problem with example website, that there is a person to go to. So I think this is really nice. My question is do you believe you are heading towards a superintendent and then a high school principal and middle school principal model? Or is that what this is intended to be like?
Yeah, well, it's something similar to that. Yeah, charter schools don't have superintendents and principals. They have directors and assistant directors. But if you're looking at a traditional school district, that's kind of the equivalent of, depending on the size of the school. A lot of times if a charter school only has one administrator, that administrator is the director, is the superintendent, is the assistant director, or the assistant principal, the principal, all of those hats. But we are getting to the point now where when we do an expansion, you're going to have a lot more teachers and students on staff. So yeah, you're going to look more similar to a traditional school district kind of setting where an assistant director would be similar to either a principal or assistant principal. The director is really would be similar to a superintendent role. So yeah, you're kind of looking at that or going down that road. But the titles, because we're in a charter school, would still remain assistant director or director.
Okay. And then one follow-up question, if I may. One of the complaints that I've read about or heard about, and former board members and parents, that we have some problems with making sure that the right, as we talked about earlier, that the right information was on the website, and then just in general, having things accurate and spelling errors and typos and those kinds of things. Who is your go-to person? It seems to me that that is not a director's job to proofread all of their own work. Who is the person that is responsible for that on staff?
So typically when I have something ready to go out, I send it to the assistant directors to look at it. I don't know if they're necessarily editing it per se. Looking at, for see, I can't even talk about it because it's English. So Maggie will kill me. Grammatical errors there. Now I got it out. But and there is one, I would say if there's one need, there are some areas in the administrative staff where we're lacking skill set wise. And some of it is in that communication, editing, proofreading area. However, this time, I don't think we have the staff to justify that, or not the staff, but the students and the need. So right now, I guess that's who I go to, or if it's a bigger project like the distance learning plan, I usually tap into one of the language arts teachers and ask them if they wouldn't mind doing that, because that's their specialty. Unfortunately, we don't compensate them for that, other than a lot of kudos for me. But at this time, we don't have somebody on staff per se for proofreading or anything like that.
Okay, it just seems that we're in this whole predicament with the student parent handbook, that maybe some of that could have been taken care of if we would have put more emphasis on that in somebody in the staff role. So just something to work towards, I guess, right?
Right, and I would take ownership of that. Is a lot of that, the updates that were in that from last year, for whatever reason, I didn't have that copy. And yeah, to your point, should I be the one that's doing it, actually going in and doing the editing? Probably not, but the buck stops with me, and I take responsibility. It didn't happen, but it got fixed. And I'll take the heat for that.
Also, John, I will say there's a key element missing here. We have high school office and the one, we don't have the new coordinator description at all in here for 504 and IEP. We don't have that role in here at all, which does need to be in here, especially if we're posting it to the site and parents want to know whom is it that they should contact with regard to those. We definitely need to know what their role is, what it's responsible, like what items would be responsible there. Definitely.
That's a good point, because that's really almost a district level. So that's probably where I would put it, is at the district level. Special ed coordinator along with the student support coordinators would probably go there. That's a good point.
Yeah, and that was great, because that happened kind of that we heard about that not too long ago, and I still not clear, and I have kids that I need to, I'm figuring it out. So that'd be really nice to have that more clear with that.
Oh, that's a great catch. Thank you for that. And I'll add that, and that will be at the district level because it applies to both.
John, what was your thought on the webpage? Is this going to be a separate information, or is it going to sit under the people's names as accountability, or I'm just trying to think what's the easiest way for people to find it.
No, I wanted to put that to try and have its own location. I was originally thinking about putting it under like the communication chain, but I'm a little hesitant to just put it there because I don't know if that's the most frequented location. So I really am looking at almost putting it in 2 or 3 or 4 different areas, just so we can get this out as much as in as many different places as we can. Definitely for the current families so they can see it. And underneath the communications, because I think, you know, we have the flow chart of where it flows. Having this makes logical sense to put that in there as well, underneath it or congruent to it. But I don't think a lot of families go to that unless they have a communications issue. So if they want to find out where do I go, we'll probably put it under the staff tab as well. So probably at 4 or 5 different areas.
Well, all referencing one spot though, right?
Right,
So
right, yep,
yeah, okay.
yep. Referencing, so you don't have to go to each individual page and update all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess in my mind, I'm thinking for me under the staff, you know, like I think about us or about, you know, kind of makes sense. So I would click through.
Yep.
So I agree with you. Maybe there's a few different channels that you come in, but yeah, as long as we have it in one spot that we can change it in one place.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, that was nice to have that, John. That was, now it'll make everyone's life easier. We're not having to tell people, or if I don't know, I can send them somewhere. So perfect.
So that's what I guess I'm going to plan on doing. I'm going to update it with the student support services and the special ed coordinator, and then I'm going to have Carrie post it in multiple places with a link to this one document. And that should be live by next board meeting.
Perfect.
Hopefully sooner.
All right. We are on business item 11D. Do I have a motion to approve the reworked student parent handbook? I'll first to approve the reworked student parent handbook. Do I have a second?
This is Rob, I'll second.
All right. So we will discuss any items that are here. I just had a couple things, but I don't know if anyone else did.
I have a question about one of the, was it a parent comment or where I read it, that now do we have to have everybody go back in and re-sign the contract or whatever that piece was that parents had to approve? Right? They had to agree to the handbook, and some parents did, but it was the wrong one, or they didn't, or they abstained. So can we clarify that, please, for everybody?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't believe we have to, and I have to go back and see to make sure we have the language in the handbook about updates. But as long as we communicate to the families that the handbook has been updated and posted on the website, and make them fully aware of tonight's meeting, that is assuming that it's been approved, so that they're aware of the updates. I don't believe we have to go back and have them re-sign all of this. Part of that is by de facto, in order to be a student at MSA, you have to agree to the handbook. And by being a student of MSA, you are agreeing to the handbook. So it's one of those kind of a roundabout way of consent to the handbook, is agreeing to continue to stay at MSA. I'm agreeing to the handbook, but I just need to be aware of, or be made aware of, that the handbook has been updated. Obviously, if we don't if we were to pass an update and not notify families or students that there's been a change, that's a very different scenario than, hey, we've made an update on the handbook. You need to look at the handbook. By continuing your enrollment at MSA, you are consenting to the updates in the handbook. If you don't consent to them, you can always withdraw from the school.
All right, so what we could do is just you or whoever on your staff that's assigned could just send a note to the parents and say, we apologize that there was an error in one of the postings, and that we had the old handbook that some of you had signed off on, and there were some errors that we have cleaned up. The board approved an updated version. It's available on the website at this point, or at, I suppose you don't send that email until it's, the new clean version is uploaded.
Right.
Something like that. Do you foresee that's how we're going to proceed?
Yeah, and yeah, with an email, with a Skyward email, along with followed up with, so Skyward email, all the families and students get a copy of it, and then followed up with put it in the daily announcements for probably 2 weeks, just to make sure everybody gets exposed to it enough.
And then again, can we just add an apology that for the confusion? Right. And right, I just think that would be, because again, we've heard just a few rumblings from parents that were disappointed with this and that it got to this, and I believe we need to have grace in this time. However, that doesn't mean that, as you said, right. you shouldered that, which is fantastic. So let's just admit that that's where we were, and now we've got hopefully a clean one.
Right. Yep.
I'm not sure if it's just a result of the scanning or not, but the pages that are from Minnesota Department of Education, it's board packet, the pages that are before the policies, page 136 and 137 in the board packet. The pages, one of them is cut off halfway and the other one is bleeding over into the other page. So however these originals were, they are not completed.
And one is that was fixed in the update, Michelle.
Okay, good. Yeah. I only have the other ones. So I was like, ooh.
Yeah, that's I let Carrie know.
There was a form that was half in one page and half, but I believe that was part of the update, because I checked that specifically, and that form is at least a full page now. So.
And then, John, the other thing on the student or the handbook, the update was that you had a COVID compliance issue. So talk about that, because I think parents should know how you're.
So that was the one highlight that I had to make. I guess the one bigger change is on page 135, the COVID statement regarding the liaison team reviewing and updating. We added a statement in there. Let's see, under the COVID plan, see the 2020-21 fall planning guide and COVID-19 procedures on the MSA website. The MSA COVID-19 liaison team will review and update MSA's plan when needed, and I put in as necessary. That's not written in there. I just said that out loud. So there is a modification to include that the liaison team is doing a review and update of the plan itself. That's one of the purposes of the team.
And that it's fluid, so that's good that you put that in there. And we didn't put down exactly what we're doing because it is fluid. Also, page 125, the MSA campus information. So I see as I go through this that we've adjusted for like when we're in person, when in-person learning. But one of the things, I don't know, on 125, I just thought is that if you read this MSA campus information, it appears that we are COVID, hybrid, distant learning, whatever situation, in person, all three scenarios, that these are the building hours that everyone's present. But, we're running a skeleton crew right now. I think we have 2 or 3 administrators at any 2 to 3 between all 4 buildings. So there isn't everybody there at all times. I'm just wondering, so just so people know that we don't have a full staff here with those building hours. So I don't know if there's something that could be put in there like you did the others on page 126 and 127, where, when in person learning or whatever, because these aren't accurate building hours right now for us with people. I don't know.
I just had to check. Yeah. No, we can put under the MSA campus information, and then where it says building and the building hours, we can put right above that for in-person and hybrid only. Distance learning, it's all it's based on the COVID plan. It's all based on you have to make an appointment to come in on the campus.
Right. And that's what I think, just so that people know that they can't just come in. Right. That's it. I think that's all I have for that. I don't know any other.
Sorry, I had to unmute. I try to mute when I'm typing because there's people that it got loud. The medications policy hasn't been updated in it still. In the packet, it's 145. We had an update for that, but that's not updated in the packet.
I'm sorry, I'm typing. I don't want to lose that comment from before, so I'm typing that in to make sure I don't lose sight of that. So just give me 1 second here. 125. Okay,
right,
so I'm sorry. What page is that, Michelle? Page what?
It is. Oh no, I scrolled.
I think you said
The
145.
student medication, yeah, 145. So that one still has some of has the previous listed caveats. And then I think it's not a huge deal, and maybe it's something to bookmark for next year, but on page 138, because we did such a significant rework of the tobacco-free policy, it may be good to put more than just the summary paragraph that is here.
Because we
You know what I mean?
included
Since we made such a
vaping and all.
significant change to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Or reference
And
that.
because it's applicable to adults on campus as well as students, that's kind of the thing. So parents shouldn't be smoking in their cars in the parking lot either, or vaping in their car, so it's a fairly significant shift. And if somebody's not aware that the policy has changed because they're not, going to the policy section every day, some I'm usually on there, but this is another way that they might encounter it, looking through it with their student as well. So that might be a.
All right. Any other discussion items? That is a big section. And we're COVID compliant. Yay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and take a roll call vote if there is no other discussion items. And we will approve the reworked student parent handbook. All right. So Dan Ellingston.
Yes.
Cody Schneip.
Yes.
Michelle Kurkowski.
Yes.
Judy Seeberger.
Yes.
Adam Bartz.
Yes.
Robert Kruger.
Yes.
Jennifer Bartle.
Yes.
Maggie Burgraff.
Yes.
Annie Cardenas. Yes. Motion carries with all yeses on 10D. All right. All right, let's go to our business items in 12. Do I have a motion for 12A, approval of Australia trip to be changed to June 22nd?
I just noticed something real quick. There should have, this is my mistake. There should have been between B and C another item. Can we add that real quick before we move on?
is that BC under 11, old business?
No, 12.
Oh, 12.
Before the approval of Craig Kepler as our legal counsel, there should be a CARES Act update.
All right, you Robert's Rules geniuses, help me out here. When we get to that, would you help me and we'll open that up. So between B and C, you said, right? Okay, let's get on with the approval. Do I have a motion to for 12A?
Just
I
one
motion,
clarification.
this is, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I motion to approve 12A, approval of Australia trip to be changed to June 2022.
Do I have a second?
This is Rob. I second.
Okay, so all I have to do is read. Oh my goodness, I had it. Oh, here you are. Here you are, Gina. All right, I have the discussion point is me reading Gina's. She goes, you could just put it under consent agenda. I'm like, no, they want to hear from you. All right, dear board members, I'm requesting that the Australia trip originally scheduled for June of 2020 be postponed until the summer of 2021. This request comes from the fact that planning a trip months away will be a serious challenge due to all of the unknowns presented by COVID-19. I have already notified families that have been planning on sending their students on the 2020 trip and the staff that the 2020 trip is canceled. Fortunately, no one will be losing any money with the decision since deposits have not yet been collected. Thank you, Gina Alberts, fantastic biology teacher of MSA. That's my own thing. Okay. Is there any other discussion?
Can you read the date? Because on
Oh.
here it says June 2022 and you said June 2021.
So June of 2020 be postponed until summer of 2021.
Okay, because on our agenda it says 2022.
Oh, well, that would be me.
That was
me.
my question as well. Okay.
Thank you. So we will approve the Australia trip to be changed to June 2021. I apologize. Do I have to re-motion that? Do you geniuses?
I think we should just have Maggie redo it and then I will resecond.
Perfect.
I motion to approve the Australia trip to be changed to June 2021.
And I second it.
All right. And the discussion was the letter I just read. If there's no further discussion, we will vote on it. Gina would be sad I messed that up. Anyway, we'll go ahead and roll call vote. Dan Ellingston,
Yes.
Cody Schneip,
Yes.
Michelle Kurkowski.
Wait. I'm texting Gina really quick. It might actually be 2022. I swear to God, it was 2022. That's the whole purpose of the letter, is that doing it in a few months is too much. So sorry, guys. I was really quick trying to text. I'm trying to do two things at once. I'm worse. I told my students not to do that, but I'm doing it. Dang it.
I think you're right, because the letter actually says until summer 2021, but that doesn't make sense. You're right.
And I was going to bring it up, and my thought was we would have more discussions later if something, because right now we're assuming everything goes great, right? And the airports open up and Australia allows Americans and there's a lot of assumptions in saying yes right now. 2022, I feel more confident than 21, of course. But 21 summer, it's possible, but I think we're going to have some more discussions probably December and January before we go forward with an Australia trip anyways. So
I am nearly positive it's intended as 2022.
Yeah,
I'm trying to double check it, but I
She wanted to push that out a year. She wanted to push it out a year.
All right. So my suggestion is we table this until
Table
the
it.
next.
I agree. We'll table it because I do have two different dates here. So there we go.
So we should. So I motion that we table this until next board meeting.
I second. That's Maggie.
All right, and we'll go ahead and roll call of votes. Dan Ellingston,
yes.
Cody Schneip,
Yes.
Michelle Kurkowski,
yes, but Gina texted back. It's 2022. Just saying.
I still think we should table it. Let's keep going.
table it. We'll keep going.
Fine, I said yes.
Judy Seeberger,
Yes.
Adam Bartz,
Yes.
Robert Kruger,
Yes.
Jennifer Bartle,
Yes.
Maggie Burgraff,
Yes.
Annie Cardenas, yes. At least I didn't mess it up. I feel, phew. I wanted to do Gina proud. All right.
And I think this is now you can put on your consent agenda.
I will put that on a consent agenda. Yes, sir. Very good. And all right. So now next is item number 12B to discuss the Personnel Committee's membership needs. All right. So this is me. I put this on here. We had, if you read the Personnel Committee and who has to be on the Personnel Committee, I did not know this. I'm part of the Personnel Committee, but apparently not only does the Board of Directors chair have to be chair, but we need 3 full board members on that personnel membership. So I'm one of them. I believe, Rob, did you also say that you'll be on personnel?
I agree.
Okay, and then I need a 3rd board member. Otherwise, we don't, this was written prior to me. So do we have a 3rd board member? We meet the Wednesday after board meetings, which is the 3rd Wednesday. Do I have another board member that would be willing to be on that committee with me?
I can do it.
Okay, great, Jennifer. So I will have Lisa and she's transitioning me. So she does a lot of the sending out the Zoom links and kind of helping me as we transition to this. So I'll have her send out that and I'll get you the agenda. So that's this Wednesday. So 4:15 Zoom this Wednesday. Thank you. I'll include you on that. Very nice. All right, now we're going to go we're going to add as a 12B-1 or something, an item for, is it approval or discussion, Cody?
Do you want me to introduce it and then we can
Yeah,
motion?
why don't you introduce it and make a motion? Because
Okay.
that's
we are receiving funding through the CARES Act, so I wanted to update us on what the Finance Committee's initial findings and plans are.
So it's a discussion item.
Yes.
Okay.
Some things we're ready to approve, some things are still in the works, but so there's discussion and decision potentially.
Okay. Well, we have discussion with an approval. We discuss anyway. So what are you looking for?
Well, I want a motion to have discussion about the CARES Act update.
You don't have to do that.
Yeah.
We can just discuss. The chair agreed that you could discuss.
Okay. Sorry, I know it's confusing with all the semantics. So for the CARES Act, we're receiving $127,000 or $127,066. That needs to be used by the end of December 30th. And there's only specific things we can spend it on. It has to be things we wouldn't normally spend or expenses we wouldn't normally have before COVID, and they have to be directly related to COVID and what we have to change because of COVID. So the 3 ways we allocated that was our internet upgrade, but John just informed me that we can't use it for that anymore, and I haven't had a chance to explain to why.
If you don't mind, I'll jump right in, Cody.
That was sure, yeah.
So yes, with the CARES Act, any purchase that's more than $5,000 for a particular line item, individual item, excuse me, it requires MDE approval. So working with MDE to get the fiber optic cable put into MSA, I was informed by MDE just today that this is not going to be allowed because the federal government, when they put out the funding for this, specifically stated that if you're doing a construction, which fiber optic cable is considered a construction project, construction projects can only be done by or on property that the LEA owns, which is a key word because all charter schools in Minnesota cannot own buildings. They can only lease. So it's the MSA building company that owns the building, but the MSA building company is not an LEA. The MSA is the LEA. So because of the way it was written by the federal government, all charter schools in Minnesota that have a ABC, affiliated building company, cannot do any construction and use these funds for it. So if we were to continue with the fiber optic cable, it would need to come out of basically our general fund. However, I've asked the question to see if we can use ESSER funds to help fund this because it's a COVID-related expense. I have not received any definitive answer from MDE yet, but because that's also a federal program, I have a feeling that's not going to qualify either. So the money that we were going to spend on the fiber optic cable would have to come out of our general fund, or we might have to give to the max money and fundraise for it, but we cannot use CARES Act money to fund the fiber optic cable, even though it's a direct relation, a direct cause from our need due to COVID, which was some really sad news today.
Is there anything that's coming out of the general fund already related to COVID that we could then spend CARES money on and effectively just balance this out?
At this time, I've been trying to code everything to either to the CARES or the ESSER or the gear that's related to COVID, so no.
Okay.
Okay. So the second item we had was updating computers for the staff. We didn't have, at our finance meeting last week, we did not have a quote on that yet because Justin was still surveying staff. But it will be 40 new computers. We have estimated 45,000 for that. We again don't have an actual estimate yet. And then the last thing that we're ready to would want a motion for approval is one thing the CARES Act can be used for is paying for tutor support for students to help them to make up for the what they're losing from their face-to-face in-person education. So if you go to page 99 in the packet, I did collect 3 bids from people. Huntington was $30 per student, and then another place didn't even really work. Their numbers were so weird I didn't even put them in here. And then the last one, which the last option was tutor.com, which is what we kind of settled on as the finance committee. We can get approximately 1,750 hours, which at $20 per session with about I believe $1,000 upfront cost. And we haven't finalized how we'd allocate those hours, but we were talking about dividing them into chunks and offering them to students, I believe on a monthly basis when the report cards come out, and we're flagging students for, I can't remember the term Shannon used, at risk or whatever, John?
Academic probation?
Something like that.
Yeah, yeah, the academic probation,
Yeah.
Academically ineligible. So
Yeah,
the
that's the
student
one.
would be academically ineligible, would then be referred. We'd actually have some resources to refer them to. And I do have one adjustment, Cody. I did get some quotes from Justin for the laptops. And it comes in the best quote for what the staff wants because the majority of staff wanted a 15-inch laptops versus the 13-inch. Came into right around $54,000 to get all the laptops for the staff. And I guess that is something we could actually move to for approval to purchase those laptops, because with the additional money that we now have available from CARES, we originally had budgeted, I think, about 45,000. We have now quite a bit extra money, so we could go ahead and get those laptops ordered. The biggest thing, I really would like to get that approved so that we can get them on order. That's not to say we're going to get them right away, because they may be on back order. We don't know. But the sooner we can get them on order, the sooner we can get them here on site. They have, and all the staff members will appreciate this, they have cameras up on the top of the screen, not on the bottom. So it'll be very helpful to all of them. And it's a bigger, not all the staff wanted 13-inch screens, but the vast majority of them want a 15-inch screen. If you look at a 15-inch screen versus a 13-inch screen, it's a big difference. So if we could get a motion to approve the purchase of some 15-inch laptops for the staff, that would be great. And then we wouldn't have to dip into our tech budget to make up the difference between what was originally planned with the CARES funding and now what's available.
Just to clarify, so would you be spending the whole 54,000 with the CARES Act money?
Yes, that would all be funded by the CARES Act.
And then what would be proposed? So then does the finance committee have the ability to reallocate that money without the board, the 45,000 that was budgeted?
Well, the 45,000 that's not budgeted then is probably going to be utilized for COVID-related expenses. My plan is, unless there's some other major project, because we have to have it spent by December 30th, is to take the expenses that we've incurred and use ESSER money to recode those expenses to the CARES. So then our ESSER money goes back to the original amount that we were given, because the ESSER we have a lot more time to spend that money, and that those also have to be COVID related. So we can.
Sorry. Let me clarify, John. So the fact that, did we not have $40-some thousand in the budget to buy the laptops?
Yeah, well, originally we kind of broke down, I'm sorry, I'm talking for Cody, but we originally broke that 127,000 down to basically 45,000 for laptops, 45,000 for the fiber optic, and the remaining amount was going to go to the tutoring.
John, I think what Robert's asking is, was any budget money budgeted in our general fund budget?
Oh, I'm sorry. No. It was all. This is all CARES. This is all CARES Act. This is all money. If we don't utilize, it goes away on December 30th. It has no impact right now to our fund balance or our regular budget.
But I think what Robert was getting at was, if we buy the laptops with CARES money, does that open up money in our technology budget to pay for the fiber optics?
Correct.
Right now, it would, if it would under our old plan, because we were going to plan on spending about 9,000 of that from the general budget out of the tech budget that's already been approved. So yeah, if you want to look at it that way, yeah, you would save roughly 9,000 for something else.
I like the idea. I think bigger laptops would help with the teachers connecting with students, right? So you're not a little thumbnail. So I like that idea, but when I'm jumping ahead a little bit on the surveys, a number of the survey respondents mentioned technology issues. Was that software? Was that hardware? Or do we know? Are we able to solve any of these technology issues with any of this CARES Act? Or do we not know enough about what that is yet?
Yeah, I don't know if I can speak directly to what those technology issues were. I know if it's a hotspot issue, we have additional hotspots already, which were bought with.
Sorry, John, I'm thinking more like the students that said, there's Zoom fatigue and I'm jumping the gun. There's some other ones, but there was also technology issues. Was not an insignificant amount, if I remember the numbers. And I just didn't know what that was because I think we didn't clarify exactly what the technology issue was. But if it's a hardware thing, are we in a position where we could solve that? Or I don't know if it's, internet speed or whatever the issue is, I'm not sure. Or if it's a software one, Google Classrooms or something.
Yeah, so I think that's something we have to drill down more with our survey in October, because we don't know exactly what it was.
So for the motion, should we move or motion to approve $54,000 with the CARES Act for the CARES money for purchase of laptops, and how many dollars for the tutoring? Because actually I think we get our first sight at how kids are doing pretty soon. It would be nice to have tutoring available ASAP for that, but I don't know how do we want to craft this? To move to approve $54,000 of CARES money for purchase of laptops only, or are we also trying to motion to approve the tutoring? Two separate motions. Motion to how much was tutoring again? Yeah, I'm going to have you make the motions.
Okay. The tutoring will be for 17,050 sessions.
Yeah.
With our startup fee, $36,000.
Yeah. Okay, that's what
which is $1,000 over the initial budget, but we're pulling money from the internet upgrade, so I think we're okay there. And I didn't completely finish my pitch. The hours are good for a year, and if you look on page 103, we offer AP courses as well, and I believe Spanish and a lot of the math and writing stuff. And I did also do research and discuss with Shannon. She'll be kind of leading that, or she'll be our liaison and allocating that. And she didn't feel like that would be any burden for her. So when we're making that, I just want to share that as well. So I guess I'll make a motion to spend $54,000 from the CARES Act for upgrading laptops for the staff.
I'll second. This is Annie.
Michelle, do you need a second still?
I just want to make sure I have the motion correct. It's just motion to approve $54,000 in CARES money to go toward teacher laptops.
Or staff, right? Or teachers.
John, was that a firm number or was that an approximate number?
54,000. It's just slightly under that, so
okay.
We should be good.
Okay, then yes.
All right. So we had the discussion. So we'll go ahead and take a roll call vote on that. So that was Cody that moved it and Annie that seconded, just for Aya's. Dan Ellingston.
Yes.
Cody Schneip.
Yes.
Michelle Kurkowski.
Yes.
Judy Seeberger.
Yes.
Adam Bartz.
Yes.
Robert Kruger.
Yes.
Jennifer Bartle.
Yes.
Maggie Burgraff.
Yes.
Annie Cardenas. That is all yes. Motion carries. Do you want to go ahead and move the second one?
Yep. So I move to spend $36,000 for a year contract with tutor.com for 17,050 sessions for the next year.
This is Rob. I second.
Okay. Then we'll go ahead and take a roll.
Cody, you're going to need to repeat it to me. $36,000 to varsity tutors, right?
$36,000 for tutor.com to purchase 17,050 hour or sessions for the next school calendar year.
17,000.
1750.
1,000 or 17,000?
I'm sorry, 1,750.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. We'll do a roll call vote then. Dan Ellingston?
Yes.
Were we going to discuss this at all, or?
Oh, yeah, we can just, I
Yeah,
thought we were done. We can discuss
Yeah,
it still.
I think this went from a discussion to a motion, but go ahead. Before we roll call vote, discuss.
Well, can you just explain how this would work? Would everybody get access to a tutor unlimited, or
so the way it works is we buy a number of sessions for tutor.com. Students, the thing is, if we gave every student equal access, they'd only get like 3 or 4 hours for the whole school year. And we didn't feel like that would be very effective. So we discussed with Shannon, when a student is put on academic probation or risk for academic probation, they get a small chunk of hours to help them overcome the hurdles they're experiencing. And then it does come with tracking data, so we can see who's using it, who's not. And they can access it a tutor. The way it works is it's an online platform available 24/7. The student logs in, they put what class they need help with, they get matched up with a tutor for approximately an hour. It can be 45 minutes, it could be an hour and 15 minutes. They don't time the sessions, and the tutor helps them with whatever they're working on for that time frame. And I think it's in line with our distance learning platform and the idea of keeping social distancing. I think that's about it.
One question on that, Cody,
Yep.
and thanks, Jennifer, for bringing up the discussion points. So I like the idea of helping the folks that really need it. I think that makes sense. My fear is always that fear of missing out. So if you give me 1,750 sessions and I only use 100 sessions, I feel like we didn't get our money's worth. And maybe Jennifer was going down that path, which is like, my daughter had a Spanish question. I didn't take Spanish, so I can't help her with the Spanish questions, right? Where it would be great if she could log into somebody who knows Spanish. But right now she's not struggling, I hope. So she's not on this list of people that will get these hours. So is there maybe some tweak or something that we could do where if we're not using up these hours, we can start making available hours for others?
I would, we didn't directly discuss that with Shannon at the last meeting, but I feel like if we have a large surplus going into finals, we could allocate equally then. John, does that sound good to you?
Yeah, and the other nice thing about this is that it's for the calendar year. So we get to especially the spring, in early April and May, if we have all these extra hours, we can start allocating those out even more liberally or generously. And then the other part about that is, I don't anticipate this being utilized a lot next school year, just because by the time we sign the contract, next school year, you're only going to be into the school year 3 weeks and your contract's going to be up. So we would want to utilize them all by the end of this school year. So yes, if we have an excess amount and it doesn't look like we're going to use them up, we definitely want to let our students use them as they can. But I think that's something we would have to probably look at in second semester, right around spring break, end of spring break time, going into April.
Also, we can buy, if we are finding they are being utilized very well and we have excess funds, we can always buy more hours as we go.
Cody, would it be I think it would be smart actually, if it's that easy to see who's utilizing it and how many hours, is there a way we can just bring this up next, the next couple, every month, just to see, hey, how are the hours going? Kind of find out how the usage is going so that we don't waste it. Is there a way, if you could get with Shannon, or you can see online if it's
Yeah,
a tutor?
they do give us a dashboard and
Okay.
they give us data, so
Okay.
we can definitely see. I don't know how I don't know if it would go, okay, of the 12 people you gave hours to, 6 of them used it, but we can definitely, I can have a report, or Shannon can include it with the director's report, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, we would need, I think that would be good, just every month, and just see how it's being used, so that we don't waste it. Like Dan said, it's not $100 or 100 hours used. Instead of, we'd want to use the 1750, and then another resource for our kids struggling.
Well, and it also, I think it probably will give us data what subjects are getting used a lot, which we could also probably use if we know, if we're getting a lot of math traffic, we know we need to, and I'm not calling out the math department, but we'll know, that'll give us an idea that, hey, that department's struggling. What can we do to help them?
All right. Well, I'll just to let you know, then I will put the discussion of tutor.com on the next few months to see how it goes. And
Okay.
then if you would be the person.
Your mic cut
Annie, I
out there.
muted you because there was a really awful noise happening.
Can I also just, like, as we're talking about this, I am in full support of individuals who are on academic probation or ineligibility, having access to additional supports. Like, that's definitely amazing. I definitely think that that's something good to do. I would also like to see some other path, because, for example, I have a number of students who may not be on academic ineligibility, but their grade was an A and now it's a C. And so I've seen a significant dip. So what I would like to see is some ability for teachers to recommend students who may not be getting a D, but are right on that cusp. Or perhaps we're just seeing something that they need it. And maybe they can't make our office hours. Maybe they would prefer somebody else just because they already talk to us a lot and they just want someone else to explain it with different phrasing, and somehow that like makes it click. But I would like another way to be able to recommend students, so that there's other, in that middle range, that middle ground where it's like not quite that they're fully failing, but you just think, man, just a little bit here might really go a long way.
Well, and I was wondering if departments could be allocated a certain number of hours, right? And if we find out, like, hey, and I'm going to pick on the math department because you already did, if they end up needing more and we don't need as many, here's, some of those hours. And it doesn't have to be all of them. But if I know the English department has hours, and at our department meeting, it comes up, I have, the 7th graders could really use some extra support, or the 9th graders could use, then we have those hours. I don't know if that's an option either.
I was going to take charge of this with Shannon, but do you think the academics committee should be involved in this as well?
I definitely think that would be a role if we're focusing on mission and vision and academic excellence, and this is a way to help promote that. I definitely think that we can team up and try to figure out, maybe brainstorm some ways to streamline a process. Is there a form that we can have? Is there, something along those lines? And so that we can represent needs-based, but that needs kind of evidences itself in different ways. Mm-hmm. And so that, just gives us a couple avenues to explore.
It's going to take a couple weeks before it's going to be available. So I think we have the time to, I want to get moving on it so that it's available soon, but we have a few weeks to iron out the small details, I think.
And you all can hear me now, correct? Justin taught me about my webcam speakers. Look at me. I can hop from one thing to another. That's what distant learning has done. All right. So are we clear now what, so Cody, does that answer? So I'll just put on discussion points, and it sounds like you'll work with Shannon and academics committee. That'd be great. This is a wonderful thing. By the way, Cody hustling for some money. Gotta love that. All right. So we were in the middle of discussion. Shall I do a roll call or any other discussionary items? Okay. Do a roll call vote. Dan Ellingston?
Yes.
Cody Schneid?
Yes.
Michelle Kurkowski? Yes. Michelle, yes. Okay. Judy Seeberger,
Yes.
Adam Bartz,
Yes.
Robert Kruger,
Yes.
Jennifer Bartle,
Yes.
Maggie Berggraf,
Yes.
Annie Cardenas, yes. Motion carries. That's all yeses. All right, now we're coming down to item 12C. Would somebody like to motion for 12C?
I will motion.
All right, 12C, approval of Craig Kepler at legal counsel for bonds. I will second that. Let's have a discussion. John, you would want to discuss this, I'm sure.
Yeah, just so you're aware of it, I've been notified that my internet connection is unstable. So if I freeze up or anything and you can't hear me, that is the reason why. Even though I'm in building C on campus, it does that every now and then. So before we get into I guess the rationale behind approving Craig Kepler, who works for Best and Flanagan as legal counsel, is because they've been having had some meetings with Bruce Sorensen about redoing our bonds. Our bonds are eligible for refinancing, and probably the easiest way to explain this is to use an analogy of your house. So our bonds, when they are originally done in 2012, were at a higher interest rate than what the current market is at. So we can refinance our bonds and save just over $1 million. And if you want to look at, probably the easiest way to do it is look at a comparison. It's on page 30. There's two different scenarios of redoing our bonds. The first scenario is if you take our original bonds and just refinance them with keeping the due date of the bonds the same. So if we do that, and that's captured, that savings is captured in scenario 1. So after we pay all the legal fees and everybody's fees, we would save a little over $1 million for the course of that bond life. What that would do for us immediately would be we would save roughly $30,000 this year and $65,000 next year, and then it slowly goes down over time. So that's one scenario. The other scenario is if we took our bonds and refinance, we wouldn't refinance them, we would reissue them. So we would have a 30-year bond, and then that is scenario 2. The savings for scenario 2 is not as much total over the life of the bonds. However, that is you're looking at going out now 30 years, and the last 6 years of those bonds is when it really starts to cost the school some money. If we were to use scenario 2 and do a reissue of the bonds, next year's savings would be $130,000. This year's savings would be $25,000. So in both scenarios, you're going to save some money up front, well, immediately. If we went to the scenario 2, we would save a lot more money up front. The problem with scenario 2 is you look long term. If you're around here in the year 2040, then it starts to cost the school more money than they're saving. But just like any other loan, usually you refinance your loan before its due date, so that doesn't really matter. So you're maximizing your savings by going with a 30-year bond reissuance rather than a refinance. And this is where Mr. Kepler comes in. So Mr. Kepler was around when the school did its bonding in the year 2012. He worked for Piper Jaffray. I believe at the time. No, I'm sorry, I'm confusing him with Bruce Sorensen, who's been working with the bonds. Craig Kepler worked with the school. He's now at Best and Flanagan. So he is very familiar with the school and the bonding. Checking around, his name pops up on the first of the list. If you want somebody to do your bonding, he's extremely knowledgeable, and it's everybody I've talked to, they work with Best and Flanagan, and his name pops up. So I would like to have him as the school's legal counsel, because we don't have any legal counsel when it comes to redoing a bond. Of course, this is all predicated on the idea that the board wants to redo the bonding. Now, if you don't want to redo the bonding and save any money, then I guess this is a moot point. So maybe I should back up and, is this an alley we want to go down, is redoing our bonds. The other part of this is by redoing our bonds, we can take that savings and apply it to our repair and replacement fund, so that when we go to expand, we'll have additional funds available to bring the cost of the school down. We don't have to redo the bonds. However, at this time, there is no statute on the books for what happens when a building company pays off their bond. This is where the lease aid gets a little murky, because if the building company doesn't have any need to pay off a bond, they don't need to charge us any rent, and then we lose our lease aid. And because we maximize our lease aid, we actually, think of it, we get a net gain, and that's the money we put in the repair and replace. So if the bond, if the bonds go away, we pay off the bonds, we don't get any lease aid. We have no way to fund repair and replace items, because we're not putting any money in there anymore, because we're not getting any money from the state. So there's a lot of incentives to redo your bonds so that you can continue getting the lease aid, which, because we get more lease aid than our actual lease is, we can take that difference and put it in the repair and replace. So then when we have to do something with the high back or something, we actually have money to do it from the repair and replace, rather than taking out of our general fund. So fundamentally, I guess, if the board wants to continue looking at reissuance of bonds, and that's included in the packet, and it was with the finance information, but I lost the page number when they redid it. So I don't know if you want to look at the specifics about that, but it is in the board packet. If you want a page number to look at, I'll have to dig through there.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, the question is, do you want to, number one, do you want to redo your bonds? And then if so, then we need some legal counsel to help the school in the process of doing that.
John, I had a question. Just a quick one, Annie. What is the impact to the expansion? I mean, I would have thought we would be looking at bonds for expansion. Does that negatively impact it if we just did it, with all the fees and everything that we're going to pay?
So that's the other question that I have, and that's why I want to make sure that there is no negative impact on that. Right now, of course, the Bruce Sorensen, who's working on the bonds, and Craig Kepler are both. This is a good thing for the school. You want to do this. It will help you get a better bond rating, or you will be able to get a bond for a new site if that's what you want. You just have to make sure that when it's written in the right language so that you can do that. And that's why I would want Mr. Kepler to be the school's legal counsel to make sure that that's included in that. Because the last thing I want to do would be to redo our bonds and then find out we're locked in where we're at.
Yeah.
And
I think that's
limits
a big concern. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
The one thing about the 30-year reissuance, it lowers our debt cover ratio, which makes it easier for us to meet the requirements for a new bond. Because it lowers our payment by so much, you know, you're saving $125,000 a year, so you can save that money, dump it in your repair and replace, or you can use some of that money to offset other expenses that you would normally have during the school year.
I have one question about the whole building company versus us. Are we the board for the building company? Because it seems to me the building company is the one that's got the bonds, not us. So explain that piece to me.
Right. So it's because the building company sole purpose is to lease space to the school. The building company is actually the owner of the bond, but because I don't know, it's the easiest way to think of it is probably the building company owns the building, but the building company is not going to do anything detrimental to the school or that the school does not want them to do. So if the school board did not want the bonds to pursue this avenue, the building company would not. Because the building company's sole purpose is to support the school and lease a building to the school. There is one other option that I talked with Mr. Kepler today about, and that would be you could form an additional building company. So there's actually two building companies that would be supporting MSA, one with the current site and then one for a second site. That gets much more complicated. It's much easier if it's one building company that's doing all of the transaction. Basically, would be, let's just say we get one building, everybody is under that building, that's what we want. So the building company, the current MSA building company, purchases that building, leases it to the school, then the building company would sell buildings A and B. But the building company wants, the building company, which we have a meeting coming up, the building company is not going to do anything until it knows what the board would want to do. So if the board does not want to do any reissuance of bonds, then the building company is not going to pursue that. I don't know if that answers your question, Rob.
And so in my understanding now, what we are voting on is to get some good advice from a guy that knows what he's doing, and he will come back with you, or you'll come back with some recommendations on which direction we should head.
Yes. So the attorneys for that purpose, for legal counsel, for just counsel. Right. So we don't make a big mistake.
Right.
Yeah.
That's how you get it.
All right.
All right.
Right.
Is there anybody else who has discussion on this point? All right.
I do.
Yes.
We did discuss this at the finance meeting, and from my perspective, it makes a lot of sense to do this. So, I'm not saying that's like, for instance, the money we could save this year is approximately what it would cost for the fiber upgrade. I'm not saying we're going to necessarily shift the savings to that, but just this year, that could cover that. So it's a significant savings for us, and going forward, it's even bigger.
Well, John, you said you were going to always be mindful of expansion. So legal counsel will be mindful of expansion with recommendation. All right. That's the thing. And fundamentally, really what Mr. Kepler is going to be doing is looking at the documents that Mr. Sorensen provides into those scenario 1 and 2, and
making sure that our best interests are in line, and then it's up to us what we're going to have to decide which scenario we want.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion? All right, I will do a roll call on item 12C. Dan Ellingston,
Yes.
Cody Schneid,
Yes.
Michelle Kurkowski,
Yes.
Judy Seeberger,
Yes.
Adam Bartz,
Yes.
Robert Kruger,
Yes.
Jennifer Bartle,
Yes.
Maggie Burgraff,
Yes.
Annie Cardenas, yes. Motion carries, all yeses. All right, we are going to, I'll go ahead and move 12D, approval of the annual report. Do I have a second?
This is Maggie. I'll second.
All right, discussion?
Okay. There are a couple of adjustments, or I should say mostly grammatical corrections that need to be made. On page 158, there is not a percent sign after the Asian enrollment, so that we would include a percent sign on that particular point underneath the graph. And then this one, I have to give kudos to our board chair on catching me on. This happens to be on page 164 under operational performance, and we are going to replace the word rigor with academic excellence, because academic excellence is in our vision. The rigor is nowhere in that. And I'm not going to give a little English class or definition dictionary class on rigor. Go ahead and look it up in the Merriam-Webster dictionary or vocabulary.com and read it. And that's not what we want. We want academic excellence. So that word will be replaced with academic excellence. And then the last thing, the strategic plan formatting on pages 211, 213, and 214, that will be corrected. In the transference, I don't know why that didn't show up, but that would be corrected as well.
And by the way, that was that wasn't a correction. I said, now I get to use.
No.
Since you used it, that was what I said. All right.
John,
So-
there's also a mistake in the governance section where it lists the board members. Alexandria Lito's date of resignation is listed before the date that they were seated. So if that could get updated.
Do you remember, you have that page number real handy, Adam?
I think I'm looking at the old version. It's page 151. So it should be somewhere in that ballpark. But the heading is governance at the top of the page.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about. So
I think it's 157, am I right?
Yep, 157. Oh, yes. I have to correct that year. All right. Thank you for catching that.
All right. Any other discussion items for this? All right, I will do a roll call vote to approve the annual report. Dan Ellingston,
Yes.
Cody Schneid,
Yes.
Michelle Kurkowski. Yes. Michelle's yes.
I said yes, it just must not have been loud enough.
Okay. Judy Seeberger,
Yes.
Adam Bartz,
Yes.
Robert Kruger,
Yes.
Jennifer Bartle,
Yes.
Maggie Burgraff,
Yes.
Annie Cardenas, yes. Motion carries. All right, let's discuss policy 522, student sex non-discrimination title 9, which you've already touched on in policy also, Michelle.
For this one, the first thing I did on this policy, quite honestly, was just to change the formatting so it said Math and Science Academy and those kinds of things, because the policy itself is really, really extensive. But what we're going to have to figure out with regard to this is all of these roles and how they're filled. The Title IX coordinator, John would be the first choice for that. We need to name an alternate coordinator. All of the individuals who are part of this policy, the individuals who are the coordinators, who are the investigators, who are the decision makers, there can't be overlaps. They have to be different people, and all those people have to complete like the workshop for Title IX. They're probably going to have some webinars, just because a lot of schools suddenly find themselves needing to do this. And there's a specific, we have to figure out the grievance procedure, the appeals procedure. So this one is a policy meeting policy, but we're going to need more people than just the policy committee. We need some guest stars here. I shot out a quick question mark with regard to our legal counsel, if he would be willing to give some tips and pointers about it. And then also like whoever's going to be the Title IX coordinator and the alternate Title IX coordinator. So John, and then whomever's going to be the alternate would, I think, for sure be needing to be at the policy meetings for it, because of all these the procedures we have to put into place and what we have to do. I don't think it's going to be really difficult to put them into place. It's just that like all the dotting of I's and crossing of T's. So I just want to make sure that we have the procedures in place as indicated and as required. And so more people looking at it just to make sure that that the policies we're putting into place make sense for what it is. And that we have the grievance procedures set up, that we have the correct forms, just all of the details, because this is a major rework. It's replacing other policies, 2 of them. And so it just is going to take some work in a couple of meetings.
So we actually, Tom, Shannon, and I all attended the Title IX training for this that was given on by, I believe it was Ratwick, Rozak, and Mahoney, and that was done early in August, I believe. And basically you have to have 3 different roles. You have to have the Title IX coordinator. You have to have the person that investigates, which could be the Title IX coordinator. You have to have. It says on there
that it can't be. It says on there that the Title IX coordinator cannot be the investigator.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's the investigator. So there, you have to have three distinct people. You have to have the appeal person. So the person at the top who would be appealed to if there is a conflict. You have to have the decision maker who cannot be the investigator. You have to have the Title IX coordinator. So you have those 3 distinct personnel that you have to have identified.
And the alternate needs to be identified for Title IX.
Well, so when we discussed this and the training was presented, it made a lot of sense to have Tom Johnson be the investigator for the middle school, and then Shannon would be the decision maker and I would be the appealer. And then for high school, you would just flop the roles for Tom and Shannon, and then I would be the appealer as well. So all of it's contained within the MSA staff, and we've already all been at that training.
And that's fine. I really do think we need to have a policy meeting. If you read it, and then like from the other webinar that is from a training that it was, they just wanted to be clear that roles were very distinct. And I'd like to get a little bit of feedback from our lawyer that swapping the roles like that is still in compliance. You know what I mean? I just want to make sure that we had it, the eyes on it that need to be, and that it gets like a full review of it, especially because there's also caveats for if there's any issues involving administration, then if all of our people are only from the admin team, then we can run into some problems later if there's any issues with that. So like it's totally fine. And I'm trying to jot down who you said was going to do which thing. You might have to remind me again later. Maybe shoot me an email.
Well, I think Michelle, maybe we should have a meeting, you and the policy team, and then the 3 administrators, so we can all get together. And then once we get a finished document, we can I can send that off to Ratwick to give it the once over, the blessing, whatever they have to do to say, yep, we're good to go. And then we can bring it back to the board.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think. It needs to have a meeting like where the things are drafted. And then yes, I agree. I would love to have just a once over from the lawyers to make sure that we're in compliance with how it's intended to be. So this is a policy that I don't know that it'll be ready for October. We can try, but there's just like a lot going on, and October is going to have some other policies coming up for updates too. But we can try for October to have a first read, depending on how long it takes to hear back from the lawyer. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time.
And because this is a major rewrite of the entire policy, I think we're not the only school that's experiencing this. Every school is experiencing the same issue. Because this is a major rewrite of the entire policy.
It totally is. And that's why they've unsuccessfully been petitioning for delay, because schools just they don't just suddenly have this many people that can each do a separate task and are available, and even just the availability that you have. So
all right. That definitely sounds good, because I did read this, and definitely it looks like a Title 9 coordinator, investigator, decision maker, and an appellate decision maker. So definitely have people not interact too much. Interacting would not be good if we can't do it with admin. Make sure we have non-biased people in those roles, right? So, all right. So we're looking December to come back, or October or November, December, or.
No, I think November would be a safe earmark month. I don't know, John, like depending on how your calendar is going, mine is like really booking up, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know if we can make October happen.
Well, we could leave it as a discussion item in October just to give an update if we want to, and that way we don't lose visibility.
It was like August 2020. Does that mean that had to be implemented August 2020, or we needed to start looking it over August 2020?
That's the other thing. It's retroactive to August 2020. So any claims that happen in the intervening time before we have anything ready, and again, they sent it out with like a backdating for effectiveness, which was super helpful.
That is something that maybe put a little fire under there to get that done.
Yeah,
for sure. All right. So that sounds good. That was discussion of Title IX. All right, monthly COVID evaluation. So I'll let John take the floor on those 4 things. I know you've thought of things and have things. Those are the 4.
I'm sorry. Were you done, Annie?
Yes,
so a lot of that information is in the in my director's report. The MDH rating. Just so you're aware of the. If I remember what page that is, that was. I want to say it's on. Oh, now I can't find the page number real quick. Is it 15?
Is it 15? I think it might be.
Just go and scroll. It's 15, yes. So it gave you the update on the MDH rating. So once again, just to reiterate, the new COVID rate for Washington County was 17.21. Ramsey County is 16.57, and Dakota County is 21.19. So that's what the current ratings are for the COVID rates. ISD 833, they're still in the hybrid. And this is basically a cut and paste right off their website. So they're going to revisit this later in I think at the end of the month, the 29th, I want to say. And then the survey results are listed in the board packet as long as the common themes. And I guess, I just want to kind of zoom in on the survey results, the common themes that you will find. If you want to read the individual comments, please send me an email and I will send those to you. But there are a lot of comments in there. So if you want to read them, just send me an email and I'll be happy to share them with you. Just because of the way the survey collector was, there was a number of, the graphs were not really helpful in that they didn't portray the, for those of you that are visual learners, they wouldn't have been helpful for you to read the numbers because the graphs weren't depicting what we were really after. And in our next survey, we're going to be revamping some of those questions so that we can get the graphs to represent what they want. Or now that we have a little extended time, I'll create the graphs myself with the data so it's a lot easier for you to read. But the common themes or takeaways really that you need to be aware of, one of the questions that each group, the staff, students, and parents all answered was, are you satisfied with how distance learning is going? And we were at 77% for students, 88% for parents, and 86% for staff. So overall, percentage-wise, that's a pretty high rating. With that, though, you also have to take into consideration those, 12%, roughly 12, 13% of students. Or even, if you just go purely by student numbers, 23% of students are struggling, aren't happy for one reason or another. So then that's really, okay, what can we do to make that better for everybody involved? The number one challenge with distance learning, and that came across the board, was Zoom fatigue. Students, parents, staff, everybody, Zoom fatigue is real. And so now it becomes the question of, within the distance learning model, what can we do to help minimize that? We've already had some discussions about what are some things we can do to help minimize what that fatigue looks like. Another one that came out from the parent and student survey, or a concern, was the amount of time spent on the computer. During the staff meeting, if you looked at the data, it showed that there was a concern that students were spending a lot of time on the computer, and the middle schoolers actually had, in some cases, more time spent on the computer than high school students, and that, which kind of puzzled me until the staff meeting. And then a lot of the sixth grade teachers were, well, yeah, that's because we spend a lot of time just teaching them how to log on, how to submit assignments. So it's more teaching the technology than it is actually doing classwork. Although one can argue learning technology is classwork, although it's not in a English setting or a science setting. But you're still teaching technology, and that added quite a bit of time to the sixth grade numbers and the middle school numbers as to how much time they're actually spending on the computer. I would anticipate if everything else were to stay fairly the same, then that number should go down, because students shouldn't need as much support as time goes on to do those particular activities or learning that technology. Another takeaway was that, and then the question came up of what had to do with learning pods. It doesn't, we don't have learning pods, or we don't know what a learning pod is, because there were 0% of the parents said that they were involved in a learning pod. Now that's, either they don't know what a learning pod is, or they aren't involved in a learning pod. So we have a connection issue between parents that we need to address. And for those of you listening, especially, the PTO at our meeting on last Monday, we talked about what it is that they could do to help in assistance with that. And being we didn't have the sixth grade back to or splash party like normal, or the ninth grade orientation, they had agreed to have a day at the park, and that's been in the announcement. So please, take advantage of that. It's a great opportunity to connect with other parents, and you could start, developing your own learning pod. And for those of you that don't know what a learning pod is, it's simply students getting together and learning together. It's not formalized by the school, but it's something that, from the school's perspective, we can enhance or promote. Part of that is, putting together a directory of parents that want to be connected with other parents, so that their name is out there for other parents to contact. So that's one thing we're looking at doing to help initiate or promote that learning pod or that connectivity between parents. So those are kind of the bigger takeaways. And of course, the concern over mental health and COVID-19 is there. I don't think that's ever going to go away, even if we get a vaccine, because some people won't take the vaccine for personal beliefs. So that, I think, the concern over the mental health due to COVID-19 is going to be there. So that's in a nutshell, I guess, the big takeaways, so to speak, of the survey. We are going to send out another one on October 1st, and we're going to drill down on some of the areas that have been arose and we didn't really have good technology or good information on because the way the questions were worded. Some of the areas that we're going to really focus in on, is the screen time. What is specifically, how much time is being spent on screen time, and what does that look like? Is it synchronous learning time? Is it work time in class? Is it just homework time? How much screen time is that, and what does that look like? And then the other thing that came up was, what about providing paper copies to students rather than all digital copies? So that's a question that needs to be asked, because some people need a paper copy to look at, and looking at a screen all day long isn't the same as having something in your paper and writing it out. Being a chemistry teacher, balancing a chemical equation is much easier with a pen and paper than it is trying to do it on a screen. And I know there's a lot of other areas where that's the same way. So I guess that's kind of the big takeaways from the update. Some of the administrative ideas, so we do want to have that support. We want to have some supports available for students to be able to come on campus. Some of the other things, all the buildings have touch-free hand sanitizer dispensers as you come in. So you just put your hand underneath there. You might have to wait a second or two. You can't just waft it underneath there. There is a little delay, but you'll get some hand sanitizer to clean up. We do have sign-ins at every entrance to the buildings. Staff that come in sign in. That's all digitally. We're also looking at options to support teachers during advisory time. Do we need 2 advisories every week? That's a question that we're exploring as well. And most of the transparency barriers are up. We're getting close to all of the number ones, the staff that have said, I need this. I won't come back in the class until I get it. We almost have all of those done. So they will have, basically, if you walk into their classroom and look at their desk, they have a transparency film all the way around them, up way above where their head would be. So they are isolated from sneezers or the airborne droplets that could be in the air.
I know it's not anything that, oh, I'm so sorry. Go ahead, Dan.
No. I was
ahead,
just going to ask if there's more. I was just going to ask if there's more discussion. So good.
Just a couple of quick things, because I've seen some other schools doing this that are in hybrid, and they've talked, they're looking at effectiveness, and I've been kind of looking at what some other schools are doing. And then one of the things that they had said was working well with regard to schools who did versus did not have the little like trifold plastic barriers around the desks. So it's just like a little, almost like a trifold that you would use for National History Day, but it's clear plastic so that the student themselves is less likely to infect the others around them. And then I was thinking that if it was possible for us to do that, especially in rooms that don't have windows that won't open, or, because that's still an issue too for ventilation purposes. And the CDC has been publishing some new information about airborne ventilation and aerosol problems. So if there's rooms that have windows that don't open, or if it's really, really winter and we can't open it because we will freeze, that might be something that perhaps we could kind of look into and start pricing out, and just to see what options we have available for student desks when we were looking at some of the COVID planning things. And then I forgot my other one, sorry.
While you're talking, Michelle, you reminded me, we did have Train coming into an air quality inspection. So they did come in. Their number one top recommendation is to upgrade our air filters from MERV 8 to MERV 13. So that was the recommendation. Now today we just had one of the technicians come out, and I talked with him about that, and he has a major concern that because of the way it draws, the MERV 13s restrict the airflow quite a bit. He has a big concern over the airflow, that it would be taxing our HIVAC system, which is something that was not, I don't believe was looked at, but I've asked for some additional clarification from Train, because that could be a big issue if we go to a MERV 13 air filter and then it shuts down the system because it can't draw enough air, especially in winter, to run the boilers. Then we don't have any heat. So before we do that, I have to make sure we get that issue resolved. A lot of the other issues or upgrades they had were talking pretty expensive, and the overall net effect is fairly minimal. So I asked them to provide some proposals just so we could see some quotes and numbers. I have yet to get those from Train though. But the air quality test has been done, and they did come up with a number of recommendations. The biggest one was going to a MERV 13 air filter.
I remembered my other one. I wanted to know where we were at in terms of seeking the assistance that the state offered, that they would come to the site and give recommendations and things like that for us to be able to move to a hybrid model at some point. Where are we on that?
To be honest, I haven't reached out to MDH, but I will do that, and we will try to get them out here by the end of the month. I know they have the team that supports MSA. It's the Metro team. They have over 100 schools on there that they support. So, and by schools, you're talking about the big schools, Roseville, East Ridge, Woodbury. So we will get on the list. I'm not sure how quick we can get them out.
There'd probably be a backlog, but just in case, so that because I'm putting in the notes, some of the different steps, and these are things we talked about last meeting. So I just kind of make sure that we're keeping our eye on, progressing and the things each meeting that we kind of check in.
Because I think come October, we're going to want to see how are we in compliance with hybrid? What do we need still? Because there was a list of things that we needed to do hybrid. And so now we're moving into a season where by November, we should have a recommendation by administration, and then we should be voting in December. So it is kind of, and I know we played September safe just because we didn't know. We wanted to watch numbers per 10,000, and schools just opened up literally 2 weeks ago, I think, for South Wash. But now October's now, okay, check. We got fiber optics to do this, check. We have PPEs, check. We, you know, all the things we didn't have to open proper. And then, you know, figuring out if there's a way for the, you know, rotation with hybrid. How do we do it? So, I mean, by November, we need to be having a recommendation. And maybe, you know, who knows? Maybe Corona is going to shut all the schools down with the flu season. Who knows? But we do have, these are check marks that we need to get, like have the Department of Ed in, or Health in, and see what we can do.
The biggest one will be the 6-foot social distancing. If there's a way we can have that requirement removed from MSA, I don't know if that's going to ever happen, but just because of the wall space, the hallway space in Building A, it's not even 6 feet wide.
Well, I mean, 25% hybrid would be better than that. I mean, families are looking if we can get back.
Right. I mean, that's all options are open. It's just a matter of hopefully they'll have some suggestions of how we can meet that, be compliant with that.
November is kind of the time, unless, you know, COVID runs rampant, and then it's a moot point if everyone's shutting down.
Right.
So, okay, great.
John,
And this, good. Yes, go ahead.
Just a quick one, Annie. So yeah, I appreciate taking the time to go through the survey, because I think this is one of those key things that parents and probably teachers and also students are feeling like, please listen, right? So you can see it with hundreds and hundreds of comments. They're screaming, right, one way or the other. And the one question I didn't quite get clarification on is the Zoom fatigue. So we have Zoom fatigue, but I'm not clear on what are we going to do about that. Do we not know, or are we scratching our heads, or what's the plan for the next month? Because we'll do another survey, but I'd hate to see Zoom fatigue coming back again, right? That would really hinder our survey feedback mechanism if we keep having the same issues. I don't have a solution. I'm just asking, do we know what we're going to do there?
Yeah, so some of that has to do, you know, with the amount of classroom time. But we had at the staff meeting talked about making sure we build in enough time, especially at the end of the period, to give students the opportunity to get up and move. Because if I'm teaching a class and I teach all 90 minutes and the students in front of the screen all 90 minutes, the majority of our students are not getting up and moving like they would go from one class to another. So, and they're just staying in front of that screen. So trying to build in time within that class period so that, especially at the end of the class, if possible, to get them up to move, or just give them that break so they can get up and move, so that when they go into the next class, at least they've gotten away from the screen for 10 to 20 minutes. So they're refreshed and ready to go when we start the new class. So that's probably the biggest takeaway that we talked about. Obviously, in some classes, it's very difficult to do, but the goal would be to try and do that on a regular basis as much as possible. And some classes, they're doing, you know, you do a project and they're meeting for 15, 20 minutes, and then the students go work. And then they check in at the end of the hour. Well, that looks much different than if I teach all hour for 90 minutes. And by teach, I'm not saying lecture, but I'm making the students be on their computer, either with breakout rooms and discussions, and then coming back into the big class, and we're still on the screen. So those are those kinds of activities that can really lead to that Zoom fatigue. And the flip side of that is for the staff, being on the entire time is not healthy for them either.
And I think that's the main point, is if there's some impression that the teacher needs to fill all 90 minutes, whether there's content or not, we probably need to fix that, because I think that everyone's going to get tired, right, with that scenario. So, and I don't expect the teachers would have been talking the full 90 minutes if they were in person either. There would have been some work time or what have you.
Yeah, and that kind of bled into a discussion about the advisory time, because a lot of, if you look at a lot of other schools, they will do like Friday as their flex day or something to that nature. And I'm not saying we're going to go there, but these are ideas that we're talking about to give the teachers more time to help them, because I would say the one thing that we underestimated the most was the impact and the drain it was going to have on the teachers. We knew it was going to have some on the students, but I think we underestimated just the amount of drain it would have on the staff. And the other part of it, that is, our staff is so dedicated to the students and their academic success. I start my meetings basically saying we're going to be perfectly imperfect. It's okay not to have everything perfectly done, especially this year with COVID. So give yourself a little grace and kindness. We know you have the best intent of the students, and you don't have to be on all 90 minutes. It's okay to, let them go and have a 30-minute go work on your own, and we'll see you tomorrow, especially on a Friday. I think the Friday afternoon classes are all the afternoon classes are probably the most difficult ones because they've been on the screen for quite some time. And the other part of that is, just the adjustment from going from summer and now we're back into the school mode. And it takes a while to get into that groove. Even if we were in person, it takes a while to get back into into the school mode where we get into that routine. So it will be, and I don't know how you measure that in a survey. It'll be interesting to see how those numbers come back now that we've been in the school basically a month.
Yeah, that will be for sure. I know I'm on less time, but the initial was a lot to get them figuring out all these platforms. So hopefully.
Can I talk for a second?
Of course.
My concern is with the mental health, and just reading the survey responses. So many kids are so lonely, and I know that the PTO is doing something for the 6th grade, but what about the other grades? I know at the beginning, like last month, we talked about Ms. Froberg was going to schedule some activities. Has any of that happened, or?
So that kind of leads into item 12G. So that when we get that, we can get those supports in place, we can start pulling the students on campus and having those activities. And that's I guess, that's one of the big downfall with a distance learning plan is you're really in isolation, which really is, anybody that goes in education is not in it to teach distance and not having in a face-to-face or person-to-person interactions with people. I mean, that's really why you get into it. And conversations with a number of teachers, the energy that you get from students that's why you're there for the most part, because you get so much energy from them and they get that from you, and you can transform in the entire class's disposition by what you do in person. It's very hard to do that through a computer because you can't walk into the classroom and get a sense for how does it feel. There is none of that. So there is a lot that is lost in distance learning, and getting some supports for the students, even if it is just a club meeting on campus, on site, will be a first step to start getting some more of these interactions. Now, I don't know if you're aware of this, but the State High School League today voted to allow football and volleyball to basically have a season. So for those students that play volleyball and football, that's an opportunity there for them now. And we'll have to see how many sign up, but the goal is to have a team and get them on campus so we can start getting students back on. I mean, and we already have the cross country team, but the more students we can get back on campus, the better. All under the guise of we have to do it safely.
Right. And I think also being mindful, John, when you're saying about classroom, you know, we, like Dan was saying, we got to make sure that, you know, we're not doing this hybridly. The activities are separate together, like Ms. Frogger was going to plan.
Yep.
This isn't class time, class work either yet, because we,
Right.
well, yeah, just make sure, you know, I was a little nervous when you were talking there. I'm like, wait a minute. You know, until we have things in place, like, can we socially distance in here? Do we have fiber optics to get people, you know, all of that
Right.
has to happen.
Yep. The safety is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
I'm sorry, will there be any get-togethers for other grades, or is it just 6th grade?
Well,
Kids want to get together at a park like the 6th grade.
right. Yeah. Right now it's not just for 6th graders. The PTO is not just for 6th graders. Basically, most of it is trying to hit or get to the students that are new to MSA so they can make some connections. But you know, I think some of this is, we have to see how this goes. And I think we will have more of those. Part of it is, you know, let's pass what item 12G has, and then we can start looking at other opportunities to open things up and get more students. Obviously, that means we have to have staff available to do that, or somebody that has to be able to oversee those activities to make sure they're done in a safe manner. But I have no reason to believe our students wouldn't follow all of the safety protocols, because they know that's the only way these things happen, is if everybody's safe.
So is that a yes? I think it's a yes, right?
Oh, well, it's all dependent on what happens on the next item. If it's approved, then the answer is yes.
All right.
But if it's not approved, obviously, then it's a no, because we won't be able to do it.
All right.
No pressure, no pressure.
Shall we go to 12G? I think we shall. Michelle, just for your reference, in the workshop that I shared with you, it has the actual amended motion that I'll be bringing to the floor right now, so you don't have to type it all out. And I'll try and, I don't know if you write the whole thing, I'll try and talk slow. So I'll move.
I got it, no worries.
Yeah, I'll move to approve the amendment to the August 6th motion to include supports. Once again, if you're out there in virtual land, it's on the last board page. I will go ahead and read it. Do I have a second?
I can second. This is Dan.
Okay, I'll go ahead and read it. And then if we have a discussion, we do. And if not, we'll vote. Because Minnesota Governor Tim Walz issued Emergency Executive Order 20-82 on July 30th, 2020, and the Safe Learning Plan for 2021, the MSA Director will implement the distant learning model for the first semester of the 2020-21 school year with monthly evaluations at MSA board meetings. Within this distant learning model, and while MSA qualifies for a less restrictive scenario under MDE guidelines, the MSA Director will use his discretion to approve on-campus student support services. So this is up for discussion. Does anyone have a discussion on that motion? All right, I will do a roll call. Dan Ellingston.
Yes.
Cody Schneip.
Yes.
Michelle Kurkowski.
Yes.
Judy Seeberger.
Yes.
Adam Bartz.
Yes.
Robert Kruger.
Yes.
Jennifer Bartle.
Yes.
Maggie Burgraff.
Yes.
Annie Cardenas. Yes. So motion carries with all yeses. So I guess some procedure writing, how to get them on campus is in order there, John. Okay, future board of director meeting and workshop agenda items 13A. The board goals are comprehensive review of strategic plan. II, expansion end of year goal. III, committee purpose statements. IV, MACS contract language discussion for November. We'll be having a guest speaker. And 5V is finance training. 14A and B, dates and times of upcoming board of directors workshops and meetings. We looked this over and made sure we had this right. John and I are not the best at this. We're chemistry kids in our head. Board of director workshop, October 19th, 2020 at 5 p.m. B, regular scheduled Board of Director meeting, October 19th, 2020, 6:15 p.m. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
This is Adam, so moved.
Do I have a second?
Cody will second.
All right. I will do a roll call and then note time and close the meeting.
Annie, I have a question quick. I'm sorry.
Yes. Yes.
What did we decide about the canceling of that October 26th? Do we need to add that here?
I
The
can't.
strategic plan meeting.
Well, I thought we were going to do that depending on if you get somebody at the next, because it's after the board meeting
Okay.
for October. So we're going to bring it to October,
Okay.
right? Because maybe some magic happens and somebody's going to carry it. I have hope, but
I see. Gotcha.
I'm having positive hope here, but I don't know. All right. So may I continue a roll call to adjourn the meeting? Because we all need our sleep now, people. All right. Dan Ellingston,
Yes.
Cody Schneip,
Yes.
Michelle Kurkowski,
Yes.
Judy Seeberger,
Yes.
Adam Bartz,
Yes.
Robert Kruger,
Yes.
Jennifer Bartle,
Yes.
Maggie Burgraff,
Yes.
Annie Cardenas. Yes, that is, the time is 9:09 and meeting is adjourned. They better not ever pull us for Zoom fatigue, people, after one of these. It would be bad. All right, everyone go get some sleep.
Bye.
Bye.